in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. I am the eldest daughter of the Liu family, always standing outside the circle of love. Since childhood, I was taught to be poised and dignified, becoming a perfect example for my younger siblings to follow. However, my fiancé was stolen by my half-sister, Bella Liu, who always pretends to be innocent and adorable. My younger brothers never remembered my sacrifices, only finding me strict and unapproachable. My parents viewed me merely as a tool to beautify the family's reputation, while favoring my younger sister unconditionally. Faced with this situation, I let go of everything. I no longer wanted to interfere in any affairs within the manor. I left them to manage their own troubles and petty disputes. The family, once seemingly close, gradually fractured, and the affection of the past dissipated. Even my innocent and adorable sister, upon losing my assistance, was no longer a treasure in everyone's eyes. No one wanted to shelter or protect her anymore. The early summer sun was warm, but I felt cold all over. It was because my younger sister was crying in our parents' arms, demanding to marry my fiancé. Those cries seemed to break my parents' hearts. Kneeling beside her was my fiancé, Liu Xiao. He stood with a straight back, looking at Bella with eyes full of affection. He declared that since birth, he had never met a girl as innocent and lovely as Bella, and he only wished to take her as his wife. He asked me, Jade Liu, to grant them this wish. As soon as he finished speaking, Bella cried even harder, sobbing that she was sorry to me, but she and Leo were truly in love. She begged me to let them be together, acting as if I were a villain separating a pair of lovebirds. Seeing this, Mother looked at me with eyes full of pity, but also a hint of warning. She told me that as the eldest sister, I must know how to yield to my younger sister. She said Leo truly loved Bella and asked me to consider the engagement between him and me as if it had never existed. All eyes turned to me, my hands clenched into fists under my sleeves. I took a deep breath and calmly said that they could do as they pleased. Father immediately changed his expression and shouted at me, asking if that was the proper attitude to speak to parents. Seeing this, Bella pretended to be pained, saying that I must be blaming her, and that she could not bear to ignore me, even if it meant missing her chance with Leo. Leo's expression changed, and he looked at me with resentment. He claimed there was no affection between us, and that forcing us together would only lead to hatred. Looking at them, I found it amusing. If I hadn't had insomnia last night and gone for a walk in the garden, overhearing Bella and my brothers plotting to call Leo here to force my hand, I might have actually thought she felt guilty. I ignored her and walked straight toward the front gate. Just as I opened the door a crack, my biased father called me back. When I turned around, my face was already wet with tears. My voice changed as I said that since my sister had gone over my head to pledge herself to Master Leo, what was done was done. I told them that if our parents wanted me to yield, I had already yielded, so what more did they want? My crying was loud, as if I were about to faint. Mother, seeing that the situation looked bad, wanted to come and comfort me. Unexpectedly, I leaned against the open door. Outside stood the noble young ladies of the capital, their eyes wide with shock. Among them was the leader of the group, famous for her love of gossip. That morning, I had sent invitations for them to come and view the lotus flowers in the garden. Now, all the ugly affairs of my family were exposed right before their eyes. These young ladies' eyes lit up with interest. Bella, who had been crying miserably just a moment ago, now truly looked like she wanted to faint. As for me, before fainting into the arms of my maid, June, I managed to give a sorrowful smile to the ladies outside. In the past, I always cared about the reputation of the Grand Preceptor's Manor. No matter what Bella did, I tried to cover it up, but I could not clean up her messes fast enough to keep pace with the troubles she caused. This time, she thought that by acting spoiled in front of our parents and pressuring me, I would swallow all the bitterness and bear the bad reputation to protect the family name as I had done before. But this time, I had seen through it all. The manor was rotten to the core, and I alone could not save it. I decided to let it all rot. However, before the manor collapsed, I had to protect myself. Very quickly, the story of Bella stealing the eldest sister's fiancé spread throughout the capital. In particular, my vague words hinted that something had happened between her and Leo, but I did not specify what. Now, when Bella went out to attend banquets, the way others looked at her was full of ambiguity. The noble ladies of the capital did not want to sit near her, fearing it would affect their reputation. Bella was bullied outside and returned home crying to Mother. Mother, in anger, called me to scold me. her maid came to call me, but initially, I did not go. Only when she used etiquette to pressure me did I put on miserable makeup and went. Just as I entered the door and called out to Mother, I fainted before I could finish my sentence. This frightened my mother, and she asked June, who was supporting me, what had happened. I only felt June pinch my thigh hard, and then she began to recount in tears. She said that since the last incident, my spirit had been damaged. For the past few days, I have been delirious more often than when I was awake. In my dreams, I always mentioned Mother. When I was lucid and didn't see Madam, I became sad. Hearing that Mother called for me, even though I couldn't walk, I insisted on walking to see her myself. These words were truly touching. When June finished saying that I fainted from walking, Mother could not say anything more. After asking a few concerned questions, she told June to take me back to my room. I do not know where the rumors started, but after that, whenever Bella attended a party, she was mocked and ridiculed by me. People said that I had been harmed by her to the point of being bedridden, while she went out to show off. She suffered humiliation outside and came back to blame me. This rumor reached Father's ears, and Bella was grounded at home. Filled with resentment, she came to find me to settle the score. As soon as she appeared in front of me with red eyes, intending to kneel, I let her kneel for a while. Then, I grabbed June's hand, trembling as I sat up like a lost soul. In my confusion, I threw the medicine bowl by the bed at her. Bella could not dodge in time and was splashed all over. Before she could cry out, I pointed at the jade pendant on her waist, my hands shaking, and stammered about her and Leo. Before I could finish, my eyes rolled back, and I fainted. June rushed to help me, conveniently breaking the small bag containing chicken blood that I had hidden under my pillow. June screamed in horror and ran out. On the way, she met several noble ladies visiting the manor. Pale-faced, June recounted that the second miss had brought Leo's token to see me, provoking me to vomit blood in anger. The noble ladies heard this fascinating rumor and left with eyes full of amusement. That night, when Father returned home, he wanted to sell June. I dragged my weak body before him, performed a bow, and then coughed up blood 3 times. I simply said that if Father wanted to sell June, he should dispose of me as well. Father looked at me with anger and curiosity. He said that in the past, I was always the one most worried about the family's reputation. That was true. When I was young and followed Father to the capital, just as he was gaining a foothold in the court, Mother reminded me every day to be careful in my speech and actions. Father's position was critical, and reputation could decide one's life. Although I listened without fully understanding, I did not want Father to get into trouble. Therefore, as soon as I entered the capital, I became even more cautious, behaving so carefully that no one could find fault with me. Even the noble ladies who had lived in the capital for a long time could not compare. The manor hung over my head like a sword, making me cautious every day. It also bound me, making my days dull. At this moment, I raised my head to look at Father, making no attempt to hide the fatigue in my eyes. I told him that I had been cautious all my life, fearing that I would implicate him, never daring to speak or act rashly. Now that my oil was running dry and the lamp was dying, I only wanted a few old friends by my side. Mother was silent for a while before finally speaking. He told me not to talk nonsense and said I was still very young. I gave a tragic smile and did not reply. Finally, he flung his sleeves and left, deciding not to punish June. In the middle of the night, June and I covered our mouths and laughed on the bed while reading storybooks. If anyone asked, we said I was staying up late. If I didn't stay up late, how could I maintain the haggard appearance of a sick patient? However, my illness could not be as severe as before. I needed to recover slowly. I had attracted Father's attention. If I remained sick forever, he would call the imperial physicians from the palace. If they were not my people, it would be hard to fake the illness. I planned to recover gradually but not completely. Otherwise, the pile of troubles in the manor would become my responsibility again. Bella had recently been released from being grounded, but she was still forbidden from going out to parties. I rested my chin on my hand and listened to June's report. I thought to myself that my parents were too reassured about their beloved daughter. If Bella could not cause trouble outside, she would certainly turn to causing trouble with the young masters, my good younger brothers. These brothers of mine had no interest in studying. Bella gathered with them and caused quite a few ridiculous incidents. Previously, when I managed them, I reluctantly maintained a peaceful appearance, although it made them unhappy. Now that I no longer managed them, I wanted to see what tricks they would play. Sure enough, Just 4 days later, there was trouble in the front courtyard. The maid of the second brother, Calvin Liu, came knocking on my courtyard door, crying. She begged me to go and save the second young master, saying he was about to be beaten to death by the master. June, Lily, Sue, and I were playing cards, ignoring her calls for quite a long time. Then I told June to go out and answer. June scolded the maid for being rude, saying that I was in poor health and had just rested. But when the maid tried to speak about the young master, June slammed the door and coldly replied through it. She said that if he really died, then report it. Snow, Calvin's maid, was usually very clever. Seeing that Calvin was close to Bella, she reported everything to Bella first. But when Calvin caused a disaster in the manor, and needed someone to bear father's anger, she remembered me. I sat in the room listening to the noise outside, and my lips curled into a cold smile. If I couldn't bear the crying and went out now, the one crying later would be me. Such things had happened too many times. Just sitting here, I knew what would happen if I went out. As expected, father was furious but couldn't bear to beat his precious son too severely. The room full of women dared not speak up to defend him, they were only waiting for me to arrive. Mother and Bella would push me in front of father like a savior. Father's anger would then have a place to vent. Lightly, he would slap me, causing my cheek to swell for half a month, so I wouldn't dare go out to see anyone. Heavily, he would use a whip to beat me until my skin broke and flesh tore. All because I didn't know how to teach my younger brother. After father vented his anger, the punishment for Calvin would be kneeling in the ancestral hall for 2 days to end the matter. Initially, Calvin felt guilty about my injuries, but after Bella secretly brought food to the ancestral hall for him a few times and whispered that I blamed him behind his back for being useless and implicating me, his guilt vanished. He resented me even more. He believed that since the eldest sister managed the family on behalf of mother, I had to bear this responsibility for him. It was understandable that he resented me in his heart. Bella softly said a few words, turning my protection of Calvin into resentment. Then she would look at her taller brother with red, worried eyes. She would say that she was truly scared at that time and had decided in her heart that if father wanted to beat him, she would risk herself to protect him. But unexpectedly, the eldest sister took the lead. She called herself useless and asked if he blamed her. Calvin answered decisively that he did not. He claimed he wasn't a fool. He could clearly see she was the one who truly treated him well, so how could he blame her? The conversation ended there, followed by a scene of sibling harmony. Back then, I stood behind the curtain thinking, then handed the basket of pastries in my hand to June and turned to leave. Thinking back on this, a little anticipation rose in my heart. Bella had previously made bold words about wanting to take the beating for Calvin. It was only a pity that I, villain, always took the lead each time. Now that I, the villain, was not present, I wondered if Bella would fulfill her oath and risk herself to protect Calvin. The answer was no. The next day, I slept until the sun was high. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw June's face eager to share the gossip. She said Calvin was almost beaten to death by the master and was now lying half dead in his courtyard. Bella was no better off. This time, she was the one who caused the disaster. Being too idle, she asked Calvin to take her for a walk to a flower house. Their actions were too conspicuous, and people recognized the son and daughter of the Grand Preceptor entering a place of ill repute in broad daylight to have fun. Someone seized this opportunity to forcefully submit a petition to impeach father. Father valued his reputation all his life, so naturally, he was furious. But he still had his reason. Before using the family law, he questioned the two of them. Bella, facing father's anger for the first time, was so scared that she was dazed and repeatedly shifted the blame to Calvin. Calvin was beaten half to death. Hearing the young ladies in the front courtyard recount the story, the look the second young master gave Miss Bella, at that time, was truly unforgettable. June told the story excitedly, her cheeks flushed and her eyes full of joy. I just smiled and had no opinion. The master had beaten me for all those years, and finally, there was a time he vented his anger on his precious treasures. I didn't know how Calvin would feel after this, but it had nothing to do with me. I had let go. If they wanted chaos, let there be chaos. Even if the sky fell and the earth split, it would not affect my leisure. Not long after Calvin's incident, another misfortune struck the manor. The third brother, Quentin Liu, who should have been studying at the academy, was escorted back by officials. The reason was that he got into a quarrel with someone at school and, in his anger, started a fight. If it were just an ordinary fight, it would have been fine. Usually, at school, he formed cliques. As soon as he started a fight, others followed. More than 10 people beat one person, causing the victim to be seriously injured and remain in a coma. The victim was also the son of an official. His father was an official in the Ministry of Personnel. Pulling a few strings, they wanted to escort Quentin to jail. The Liu family was famous for its integrity. If Quentin wanted to enter the court as an official, he also had to follow father's path of integrity. If he went to jail, his future would be ruined. Father was still at court at this time. Mother presided over the matter. After listening to the officials, she cried until she was breathless, completely losing the demeanor of a noble lady. She clung to Quentin's arm for dear life, refusing to let the officials take him away. The officials pretended to be in a difficult position for a while, and then said that if she wanted to keep the person, it was possible, but the ransom money might be high. Hearing this, Mother feared they would regret it, and hurriedly called the housekeeper to get the money. The housekeeper returned quickly, but instead of 2 people carrying a chest of silver, it was just a small box in his hand. Mother was furious and immediately scolded him for not fulfilling his duties. After receiving the ledger, her face instantly turned pale. It turned out that half a month ago, after I fell ill, I had loudly returned the right to manage the ledger to Mother. June and Lily took the ledgers throughout the manor, naturally letting Bella know. Since then, she pestered Mother every day, sometimes demanding money to buy clothes, other times demanding to go to jewelry auctions with princesses and countesses. Mother did not know the accumulated wealth of the manor clearly. Because she loved Bella, she gave without hesitation. Now that Quentin was about to go to jail, there was not even enough ransom money in the manor. That silver had turned into dazzling jewelry on Bella. As Quentin was being led away, Bella appeared at the door, wearing a flower hairpin worth 500 silver taels from the Jade Pavilion. She skipped in, unaware that her brother's future was being ruined for that 500 taels. She even smugly showed off in front of Mother, holding her arm and acting spoiled, asking if it was beautiful. Mother looked at the sparkling flower hairpin with red eyes, asked the price, and then immediately dragged Bella to return it for money. Bella naturally refused, crying and saying that when I managed the ledger, I was stingy with her. Now that Mother managed it, she had also become heartless. Mother was furious, her hands trembling as she pointed at Bella. She said that in the past, Bella accused her sister of being stingy, but now she understood. This wasn't stinginess. It was clearly Bella's excessive extravagance, yet she still blamed her sister. She insisted that Bella go with her to return the jewelry. Mother's attitude was firm. If it were a normal day, Bella would have accepted it, but she had just boasted that she would overshadow her sworn enemy, Ruby Song, at the palace banquet in 10 days and trample her into the ground. She had just enjoyed the feeling of seizing a treasure from her enemy's hands. Now, telling her to return it was no different from trampling on her face. Bella refused to go. Mother was also determined not to let her be. During the argument, Bella screamed and rushed towards the lake, saying that if she had to return the hairpin, she would commit suicide. Finally, Bella was held back by Mother's wet nurse, but Mother also lost all her strength to argue with her. Her whole body collapsed. Looking at the child she loved, her heart and face were filled with confusion. June feared that her narration wasn't vivid enough, so she specially pulled Lily to reenact it a few times. But seeing that I still didn't smile, the enthusiasm in her eyes was extinguished. She carefully said that if I didn't like hearing these things, she wouldn't tell them in the future. I told her it was fine, and that we always needed to know the news in the front courtyard to prevent mishaps. I leaned on the table, holding a fan and gently propping up my head. I said they were my relatives after all. Not laughing at them was to keep a little of my last virtue. I held back my laughter, thinking Buddha would forgive me. In the end, Quentin did not go to jail. Father asked his friends in the court for help. 2 hours later, Quentin was brought home, but Father owed a great favor. In addition to beating someone's son and refusing to pay 500 silver taels to resolve it, the official from the Ministry of Personnel felt that Father was too contemptuous and held a grudge. Now, for Father to maintain his neutral position as before would be difficult. When Bella understood the seriousness of the problem and knew she had caused a great disaster, she was scared pale. She hurriedly took her maids out and finally managed to return the hairpin before Quentin and Father returned home. That night, when she appeared in front of Father and Quentin, she wore a white outfit. Her face, usually charming, now had no makeup. Only her red eyes were most visible, As soon as Bella saw father, she knelt, her forehead touching the cold ground. Her voice was extremely pitiful. She said she knew she had committed a grave error and almost harmed her brother's official career. From now on, she would wear white and no makeup to always remember her mistake. She apologized to her brother and father. This scene appeased much of father's anger. After all, Bella was not completely ignorant. However, Quentin's face was still not good. He was still angry about almost going to jail. Regarding Bella's apology, he remained silent. Bella considered herself to have escaped disaster, but her monthly allowance for the next half-year was gone. This was not a big deal for her. She had no money, but Leo did. She only needed to fabricate a few stories about being treated poorly in the manor and cry into a handkerchief in front of Leo. Leo, even if he had to move his entire fortune, would let her continue living in luxury, eating delicacies, and being the most innocent and carefree girl in the world. As for the fact that Bella had not yet married into the family, but was spending Leo's money every day, and what the old madam of the Xiao family thought, I did not know, but that was a story for later. That night, the wet nurse from my mother's courtyard knocked on my door. She said mother had a headache and could not sleep, so she wanted to see me. I immediately raised my voice and told June to invite the wet nurse in. As soon as I finished speaking, I cawed 5 times and vomited blood twice. When the wet nurse opened the door, she saw me draped in a thin coat, leaning against the doorframe, coughing up blood. My handkerchief was dyed almost entirely red, and blood dripped from the edge of the cloth onto the floor. The wet nurse gaped, unable to say a word for a long time. Finally, she left dejectedly. I did not go to see mother. Instead, this made her worry about me. The next day, mother packed a lot of supplements and brought a large group of maids and servants to my courtyard with great fanfare. She wanted to see me, but I was in a coma and did not want to see her. Having seen Bella's courtyard filled with precious flowers, mother looked around my simple courtyard, which had nothing but a large lotus pond. She was furious and asked why Jade's courtyard was so simple. She questioned if the servants were bullying her daughter because she was ill. June, Lily, Sue, and the other maids immediately knelt and sobbed that the arrangement of the courtyard was my decision. Mother knew that June was closest to me, so she called her up. June wiped her tears, took a few deep breaths, and then sobbed. She said that in the past years when the young miss managed the household, she knew the family was short of money. Often, there was not enough monthly allowance for the master and madam to eat well. To ensure the young masters and young ladies did not suffer, the young miss cut almost all her own share to save for other expenses. June choked up, her voice becoming even more sorrowful. She said that last winter, in order for the master and madam to have silver charcoal for heating, the young miss had no charcoal in her room. She left it for the servants and endured the bitter cold winter by herself. At the beginning of spring, she fell ill. Now, stimulated by the matter of Miss Bella and Master Leo, she could no longer bear it. June was over-dramatizing the situation outside. Listening from inside, I furrowed my brows. She spoke so tragically that I almost pitied myself. In reality, my body withstood the cold very well. Winter in the capital was not too cold, so it was fine not to burn charcoal. However, mother seemed deeply hurt. She staggered back 3 steps, tears falling like rain. She asked how it could be like this when she was right there. Nanny Wang saw this and knew that mother was in no condition to stay. She waved her hand to dismiss the group of servants, including June, Sue, and others, and then supported mother as they left. As soon as they left, the gate to my courtyard was closed by my maids. I threw off the blanket and sat up on the bed, applauding them one by one. Perhaps because her guilt was too great, from then on, mother did not come to find me anymore. She had Nanny Wang invite a doctor to see me a few times. The doctor replied that I only needed to rest and recover. Gradually, she stopped paying much attention to me. But when summer came, there were many things in the manor that required her attention. Every month, she had to buy ice, and she also had to make 2 new sets of summer clothes for everyone in the family. These were all large expenses. Bella was sensible this time. She took the initiative to pawn the gold hairpins and silver bracelets from her room to supplement the household funds. This action helped her regain mother's favor. However, whenever Bella went out, she inevitably faced sarcasm from other noble ladies. In particular, her sworn enemy was always watching, waiting for her to fail so she could announce it to the whole city. When Bella returned home, she had to wear simple clothes, looking like a new widow, and act obedient and sensible in front of our parents and brother. Our parents were fine with it, but Quentin usually treated Bella well. However, since the incident with his near imprisonment, he looked at her with no trace of kindness. Bella was angry but had nowhere to vent. Just then, Calvin recovered from his illness and could go out again. Bella immediately hatched many schemes in her heart. Bella's current sworn enemy was Ruby. Ruby used to be her close friend. That young lady once treated Bella extremely well, simply because she admired Bella's second brother, Calvin. Bella had promised to help the two of them get together. However, she feared that once Ruby got what she wanted, she would no longer fawn over her. One must know that having the daughter of the Minister of Revenue look at her with flattering eyes made a powerless lady like Bella stand out immensely when she went out. At that time, Ruby was deeply in love with Calvin. Facing Bella's excessive demands day after day, she gritted her teeth and endured. That is, until Bella tore up the letter Ruby had given her to pass to Calvin. Bella hid behind the artificial mountain, reading it aloud and mocking it with her maids, leaving Ruby to fall from the banquet in despair. Only when she heard it clearly did Ruby realize she had been played by Bella. A noble lady from a powerful family being humiliated like that naturally hated Bella to the bone. From then on, Ruby opposed Bella everywhere. She did not even care about her reputation, gathering other young ladies in the capital to boycott her. Although Bella had a few loyal followers, they could not match Ruby's ferocity. When Bella returned home, she would cry and curse in the courtyard every time. She said Ruby didn't look at herself to see what she wasn't worthy of her second brother. She called Ruby a frog in a well and blamed everything on me. At that time Calvin protected her. Seeing Bella being bullied by Ruby, he became increasingly annoyed with Ruby. The feud between Ruby and Bella deepened. Sue, pouring tea beside me, could not help but mutter a few words. She said if she were Miss Song, having spent money and effort running errands every day for nothing, she would have long ago dragged the person who played her into a sack, tied a stone to it, and thrown it into the lake. I glared at her and smiled, reminding her to be careful with her words. She was dissatisfied because this morning, when she went to get ice, she happened to overhear Bella plotting with Calvin. Bella clung to Calvin, acting spoiled, asking him to pretend to be nice to Ruby, and then publicly reject her at the banquet to humiliate her. But this time, Calvin was no longer as compliant as before, doing whatever Bella wanted. Facing Bella, who was hugging his arm and acting spoiled, he only gave a cold glance and then pulled his arm away. It seemed the second young master was no longer interested in her schemes. But then, he saw Sue from afar and called out to ask her something. Sue spoke while recalling the event. She said it was strange. Usually, when the second young master saw people from our courtyard, he always frowned in annoyance. June, holding a large broom and sweeping nearby, could not help but interject, asking what he had to say to Sue. Sue rolled her eyes at June and said the maid was thinking too much. The second young master sought her out to ask about the eldest miss. Hearing this, I could not help but be surprised and stopped fanning myself. I asked what he asked about me. Sue took a step back, stood up straight, and solemnly imitated Calvin's posture. With a bit of embarrassment, she opened her mouth and asked if the eldest sister's illness had improved lately. At that time, Bella stood beside him, unhappy, her eyes red as she stepped forward. She complained that she had just said so much to him, and he ignored it all, only caring to ask about the eldest sister. She asked what he was doing. Calvin replied that it was nothing. He glanced at Bella and then looked straight ahead, ignoring her. He said he was just realizing the difference between words and actions. Recently, Calvin had indeed changed. In the past, relying on the family's power, he spent all day playing with Bella, cockfighting and racing dogs, never studying. These days, he proposed to Father that he wanted to join the army to train and earn some merit to bring glory to the family, so Father could be proud. If he had had this will before, Father would have certainly been willing to prepare everything and send him off immediately. But unfortunately, now the reputation of the Manor had declined. Political enemies in the court were closely watching every move of Father and my younger brother. Quentin had caused conflicts outside, making matters even more difficult. Father feared that a small mistake could cause Calvin to be harmed. For this reason, even though Calvin had the ambition to advance, he was kept at home for another half a year. After all, the son of an official joining the army had to start from the lowest rank. If someone wanted to target him in the army, getting killed might not happen, but being disabled for life was not rare. Calvin was very disappointed. He shut himself in his courtyard all day, seemingly competing with me to become the laziest person in the manor. Recently, the weather had become increasingly hot. This summer was different from previous years. The stifling heat made it impossible to stay indoors. The maids and I hid under the shade of the trees by the lake in the courtyard all day. Each person took a corner, fanning constantly, only stopping to breathe out the hot air. It was said that Huangzhou was suffering from a drought. The lotus pond, which was usually full every year, was now dry, the earth cracked 3 inches deep. Su lay on the railing of the pavilion, sadly recounting what she heard in the manor today. The capital was also unbearably hot. It was said that the wells used to store ice were almost dry. The price of ice outside had increased many times. She feared the manor could no longer provide ice for every courtyard. June wiped the sweat from her forehead, looking worried. She asked if Bella hadn't pawned a batch of jewelry to supplement the ledger. Shouldn't the funds have been replenished? Why did it still sound like there was a shortage? I stopped fanning halfway, surprised, and asked June. June looked at me with a speechless expression, not wanting to talk to me anymore. Su, not understanding, pouted and explained. She said the young Miss Bella bought only exquisite jewelry. If taken to the pawnshop, not many items would recover their value. A few days ago, the amount of money she brought back wasn't even half of what she had spent. Mother was not used to managing money, and that money was almost gone. Su puffed out her cheeks and continued muttering that it was also because Madame did not know the value of those jewelry pieces. If she knew, her eyes would surely pop out. As soon as she finished speaking, her head was tapped by the handle of a fan. Turning around, she saw June glaring at her, scolding her for having guts to badmouth the mistress while still in the manor. Su pouted, her expression so humorous that everyone burst into laughter. I could not help but reach out to pinch her cheek, and stuffed a lotus seed candy into her mouth. I told her to endure a little longer. This year was almost over. Now that I didn't have to manage the ledger, we theoretically had money. Let others worry about the manor's affairs. Days passed like this, the sun became more intense, and prices in the capital skyrocketed. Mother worried about the calculations and ledgers every day until her hair was messy. The ice in the courtyards ran out one by one. Only Father's study still continued to use it. It was said that several times, Mother seemed unable to bear it and wanted to ask Father for money, but in the end, she gritted her teeth and held back. She still remembered the days before Father became prosperous. She was severely criticized by my paternal grandmother as useless and unable to manage money. At that time, also joined grandmother in scolding her as a squanderer. Back then, Mother cried while being beaten to the ground by grandmother with a broom. Her eyes revealed humiliation as she looked at me standing innocently nearby. To this day, grandmother had passed away, but Mother still remembered that humiliation vividly. Facing Father, she still could not open her mouth, but this heat would not stop out of pity for a woman tormented by a few thin ledger books. After Bella pawned her jewelry a few times and was questioned by Mother, she only cried about being poor. Finally, out of helplessness, Mother knocked on my courtyard door again. This time, I welcomed her quickly. As soon as the gate opened, I held an old jewelry box and enthusiastically offered it to Mother. She did not immediately take it but scanned my dilapidated courtyard. Her eyes revealed shame. Then, her gaze stopped at the jewelry box in my hand, which was worn at one corner. She was silent for a long time before stiffly reaching out to take it. Beside her, Nanny Wang also wanted to take it, but Madame pushed her aside. When she left, Mother looked at me with many emotions. Finally, a single tear rolled down to the wrinkled corner of her eye. She sighed as if she wanted to vent her feelings, but she looked even sadder. She had recognized that the jewelry in the box was all in the style of 20 years ago. Those were things my mother had used long ago. That day, I followed my parents from the remote Qingzhou to the capital. The daughters of other families had heads full of gold hairpins and jade bracelets, wearing embroidered dresses, gathering together looking as magnificent as fairies in the sky. I wore coarse cloth clothes, naturally not fitting in with them. Although I was always cautious and avoided being targeted, at that time, I was still young and loved beauty. I returned home in grievance with red eyes. Seeing this, my mother took all her jewelry and gave it to me, comforting me that these jades and agates were all real. Even if I wore them until I got married, it would be enough. Later, as Father advanced in his official career, the spending in the manor became much more comfortable. But Father had no backing in the court. Achieving the position of Grand Preceptor was entirely due to his integrity and loyalty. If he wanted to maintain his reputation for integrity, He could not show off wealth. Mother and I still dressed simply. At that time, I understood that the more poor and frugal we appeared on the outside, the more people would praise father for his high moral character, and his position would be safer. Later, this became my habit. Even though mother and my younger sister now had plenty of jewelry, befitting the status of noble ladies of the capital, I still did not like to dress up. In their eyes, my sister was beautiful and cute, suitable to be taken out, while I was boring and dull. They did not know that those years of constant worry were etched into my memory, making it impossible for me to forget. The vigilance had penetrated deep into my bones. To this day, on my dressing table, there were still the pieces of jewelry my mother had given me. The jewelry mother gave me suited the buying habits of the people of Qingzhou 20 years ago. The designs were simple, but the materials were real and valuable. Pawning that one box of jewelry would still yield more money than what Bella had pawned before. The next morning, Lily opened the door and saw 2 large buckets of ice placed at the gate of my courtyard. The servant carrying the ice wiped his sweat and smiled at Lily. He said the madam stated that from now on, only the master and the eldest miss would not have their ice cut. I smiled. Before I could tell him to take the things back, I heard noise coming from the guest room in the front. June went to investigate and discovered Bella crying and complaining to Howard Liu, who hadn't been home for months. Howard was the eldest son of the family, born 1 year after me. By age, he should have been close to me, but his situation in the family was completely different. Our parents placed all their hopes on him, expecting him to inherit the family business and study hard to pass the exams and bring glory to the family. When I was holding mother's old jewelry and enduring the cold stares of others, Howard was wearing brocade robes and silk shoes, using the most precious ink and brushes in the capital, standing under the protection of a prestigious family to study and work. Before that, when my whole family was still in Qingzhou and life was difficult, I had to roll up my sleeves and pants to go down to the lake with my siblings to pick lotuses, grind mud, and make seals. It was meticulous work. Returning home, I had to labor day and night. But that work brought rich rewards. 2 boxes made in a year, sold to the nobles in the capital, brought in enough money to support the whole family for half a year. But sometimes, when I hugged the wet lotus stalks and returned home, I would catch Howard reading in the front yard. He looked at me with disdain, glancing at my muddy legs, making me feel embarrassed. I would turn my heel and retreat. Even though he was my brother and not much different in age, ever since he learned to read, he didn't talk to me much. He always acted as if I made him lose face. At that time our family did not have the power we have now, and I didn't have many younger siblings. Mother still treated me gently. She would hold me in her arms on cool summer nights, stroking my back to comfort me. She told me Howard was a boy, different from her and me. Howard had to study and later become an official to shoulder the family. He was a noble person and could not bear a life with a little filth, but she knew I did it for the family. Howard's newly bought writing paper also came from my lotus picking. I was comforted by mother's gentle sympathy. In my heart, I thought that when Howard knew I bought paper and pens for him, he would sympathize with me like mother did. I just never thought that no one would ever tell Howard these things. Because he was the eldest son, the one who would bring glory to the family, he only needed to use the available paper and pens to write essays. He didn't need to know where those things came from. Because of this, although Howard and I were close in age, the worlds we saw were completely different. I often recalled that Howard had previously discussed that poor people should sell the furniture in their houses to get a considerable sum of money. He was 13 at the time and had been studying for 5 years. The world in his eyes must have been very beautiful for him to say such naive words. I could not find an answer. I only knew that when he used the new brush exchanged from my lotus picking, he still looked down on me. I no longer went home through the front door, deliberately avoiding the sound of reading and the ambition therein. Later, when Bella came along, she was pampered from childhood, carrying the arrogance and nobility of a daughter of the capital. Howard liked her even more. Every time he went out and came back, he would definitely bring gifts for Bella. Bella could receive everything popular among the girls in the capital from Howard. This time, Howard brought back a set of 9 linked rings for Bella. This was a new toy that had been popular in the capital for the past half-month. The noble young masters could not play polo, so they gathered all day to solve the 9 linked rings. Very quickly, this game spread in the aristocratic circle. Howard bought this pair for Bella to make his sister smile. Later, she could be like other noble ladies, clever and skillful in solving puzzles, becoming a topic of romance. He could also rely on that to be proud for a while in front of his classmates. Unexpectedly, Bella didn't even glance at it, only burying herself in her brother's arms to cry. Howard, dressed neatly, had his lapel wet by Bella's tears. He frowned and called Bella's maid, Sonia, to explain. Sonia learned from her master very well. She only said that recently the manor was short of money, and Bella had to pawn her jewelry to supplement the family. But the madam cut her ice bucket and transferred it to my courtyard. She did not mention why the manor was short of money or why, in Mother's eyes, I needed that ice bucket. It was just a small matter, why be so aggrieved? Howard thought Bella was angry because her ice was cut, so he told Mother to give the ice back to her. He still had the mind to show off the gift he bought for Bella. Bella, seeing that Howard had no intention of standing up to help her, swallowed her anger and reluctantly played with him for a while. But her heart was in turmoil, and she was in no mood to solve puzzles. Using the excuse that she would send it to Howard's courtyard after solving it later, she left with Sonia. Howard was a bit dissatisfied seeing her evasion, but he let her go. It was said that Bella smiled when saying goodbye to Howard, but her retreating figure carried a bit of annoyance. I stood at the courtyard door, listening to everything. I smiled at the servant bringing the ice bucket. Looking at the situation, it was not good. I asked him to tell the madam that I didn't need it. My younger sister was young and healthy and liked activities. It would be better to take these 2 buckets of ice to the west courtyard. Mother wanted to use 2 buckets of ice to appease the guilt in her heart, but I didn't want to accept it. The servant carrying the ice from Mother's courtyard had just heard Bella crying to Howard about this matter. His face looked embarrassed. Hearing my refusal, he had nothing left to say. He bowed and turned back to carry the ice buckets away. My maids and I also turned back into the courtyard, preparing to close the door, when we heard a voice calling, "Eldest sister." It was Calvin calling me. Turning around, I saw he had already arrived in front of me. He had always been cold to me before, but now he bowed deeply with proper etiquette. I looked at him coldly for a while. Seeing his hands getting tired but still not intending to help him up, Calvin persisted stubbornly. After a while, I dropped my handkerchief into my palm, covered my mouth, and coughed a few times. In a low voice, I said my health was not good and I dared not bother the second brother. After saying that, I turned into the courtyard, and the maid closed the door carefully. I still remembered when Bella planned to have Leo come to break off the engagement and propose to her. The most enthusiastic supporter was Calvin. These days, not seeing him, I could still peacefully listen to the news. Now meeting him, I only felt hatred and wanted to hit him a few times. For many years, Mother didn't want to manage the family affairs, leaving me in the manor year after year. Now I was 17, a grown young woman. The marriage with Leo should have concluded this year. The Xiao family was wealthy. It would have been a way to restore some face for me. But my younger siblings ruined it, using the method that embarrassed me the most. They were not children who knew nothing. They clearly understood what a girl of my age facing a broken engagement would have to face. But they still acted on the malice in their hearts, ignoring the affection I had given them over the years. I hated Calvin. Since Calvin didn't want to see me before, I didn't want to see him either. Calvin also realized this. Standing outside the high wall of the courtyard, he called out loudly. He said that recently he had followed my advice and studied hard. There were places he didn't understand, and he asked if I could help him answer them as before. Hearing this, I stopped in anger. I walked to the corner of the wall, picked up a blue brick, weighed it in my hand, and began to aim at Calvin's position. The maid beside me hurriedly hugged my arm to stop me. Finally, I dropped the brick, pretended to cough a few times, and then said loudly that the young miss was coughing blood again and needed to lie down and rest. The doctor said the young miss needed quiet recuperation and could not bear outside disturbances. Immediately silence fell outside. After a long time with no movement, I lay down on the chaise lounge, still annoyed in my heart. That was until a maid returned from the market bringing good news. "They're back. They're back." The little maid's eyes lit up. "Who is back?" the maid beside her asked. "Arthur has returned, and he brought a message from Victor for the young miss." Hearing this, the 2 little maids blushed with excitement. It was no wonder. Arthur Xiao was the most famous romantic figure in the capital. Just his appearance made him the dream of many young ladies. Moreover, he spoke elegantly, had gentle eyes, and was skilled in both literature and martial arts. Today, meeting June, she clearly showed her bias. Arthur, Victor. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but laugh, feeling that Victor Xiao was truly pitiable. Having such an outstanding younger brother, it was no wonder he complained every year that he was blocked from many romantic relationships, and marriage was difficult to achieve. He himself often complained that the girls who associated with him all had intentions toward his younger brother. These words were partly meant as a joke. Victor was also an outstanding person. A few years ago, he inherited the Xiao family business. Over the years, he led the Xiao family's merchant caravan back and forth between the capital and the northwest, pulling off several big deals. Although the Xiao family were merchants, they could now be considered the wealthiest in the capital. Victor had ambitions in the four directions. Every year, he led the merchant caravan back and forth between the capital and the northwest. Each year, he stayed at home for less than 2 months. Every time a matchmaker was arranged for him, before he could meet the girl, he was already leading camels to transport goods across the desert of the northwest. When he returned, that girl had already become someone else's wife. Victor didn't care. He often joked that this was God's will, wanting him to earn more money. Not marrying a wife saved a lot of expenses. The little maids often joked that he was stingy. But every time I asked Victor to take lotus mud seals to the western regions to sell for money, the silver he brought back was never short a single coin. He asked someone to tell me that the nobles in the western regions were very impressed with the sophistication of the mud seals I crafted. Some small kingdoms even considered the few boxes of mud seals each year as royal items. After all, it took 200 days a year to grind out 2 boxes of top-quality natural mud seals. There were many people in my courtyard. The little maids gathered lotus and ground mud with me year after year. This was also the reason why, previously, although father's salary was not much, I was still able to support the whole family and save a little to take care of my brothers' official careers. Victor exchanged a few boxes of mud seals for a lot of gold and jade in the western regions. Upon returning, he brought them to the Xiao family shop to sell at the highest price and then sent the money to me. He worked thoughtfully and reliably, enough to show his character. Now he asked Arthur to bring a message, saying that the merchant caravan would not return to the capital for another half-month. He knew I was seriously ill and needed to arrange many things, so he asked Arthur to bring the money back first. Arthur would finish the inventory and then come to give the money to me. This time, consider it as the Xiao family buying those precious items in advance. Finally, he asked Arthur to ask me something. Hearing that I was seriously ill when he returned, could he be allowed to visit me? I smiled. In the past, asking Victor to sell goods required passing through many hands. He knew I was afraid my siblings would find out I had a way to make money and would waste it even more, so he always kept it a secret for me. He and I didn't meet much, and our feelings weren't deep enough for this. Now that Victor asked this, it was hard to avoid making others think he had other intentions. Arthur was a sophisticated person. He knew that the Xiao family did not openly contact me, and coming directly was inconvenient, so he asked a young servant to send an invitation to meet at the Xiao family restaurant. The Xiao family was, after all, bringing money to me. I should have welcomed them enthusiastically, but currently, I couldn't go out. There were dozens of pairs of eyes in the manor watching, just waiting for me to be able to walk, so they could hand over all the troublesome matters back to me. I asked June to reply that I heard there were many precious willows in the western regions, and I wanted to ask to buy some to nurture while recovering from my illness. At noon, Arthur brought gifts. I went out to welcome him. Passing by the lotus pond, I met Quentin arguing with Mother. He said that, when sending Big Brother to study at Chancellor Su's house, the initial cost was 5,000 silver taels, and Mother didn't regret it. Now she said she didn't have money for him. His face was gloomy. Seeing Mother silent, he became even more dissatisfied, stepping forward aggressively. He said he heard that the second brother, who idled around, had also been taken care of by Mother, just waiting for half a year to leave home. Mother said there was no money, so where did that money come from? I felt it was unfair for Mother. I had heard about Calvin's matter before. It was all arranged by Father. Mother didn't have the ability. Now Mother just looked at Quentin, speechless, only knowing how to cry. Her expression became even more tired. Father was usually not at home, and when he returned, he only stayed for a while and then left. It was hard for Mother to talk to him. Moreover, She also felt many eyes watching our house. How could she dare to let Quentin continue causing trouble? Just then, Quentin saw me, glanced at me, and walked away. Mother hurriedly chased after him. I saw them going to the main gate. I deliberately slowed down. From a distance, I saw Bella coming back from outside. She looked happy, holding many gifts with Sonia, talking and laughing. Quentin saw the items Sonia was holding and became furious with Mother. He said that since the house had no money, where did those things come from? Mother could not speak. Suddenly thinking of something, she scolded Bella. She asked if Bella took the Xiao family's things again. She said Bella was not married yet. How would people respect her later when she moved to her husband's home? Moreover, father was being closely watched at court. Bella had endured for too long these past few days. Seeing me standing behind watching the commotion, she immediately lost her composure. She got angry and interrupted Mother. She said Master Leo loved her and could not bear to see her use poor, quality things. She claimed the entire Xiao family would belong to Master Leo in the future. So what was wrong with using his things? She accused Mother of being biased towards the eldest sister and not wanting to see her live well. Mother said she only feared Bella would be despised by others later. Her eyes filled with tears. Bella retorted that Leo gave her only the best things in the capital. So how was that being despised? She pointed at me and said that the eldest sister had been engaged for years and only received that old flute. That was what being despised looked like. Bella glanced at me. I turned my head, pretending to be sick. My refusal to show my face only increased Bella's momentum. When Leo first got engaged to me, he also said he admired my demeanor. He made a bamboo flute by hand to express his feelings. Later, he said I was like someone far away. It was not until Bella approached him that her bright youthfulness moved him, making him realize his feelings. Bella always remembered that Leo made a flute for me himself. She thought the Xiao family looked down on me, and that it was proof of my failure. She seemed to no longer care about the rumors outside regarding her and the Grand Preceptor's manor. She only wanted to prove to everyone that she was more precious than me. Mother was angered by her. She stepped forward and raised her hand, intending to slap Bella. Bella did not pretend anymore. She thrust her face forward, glaring at Mother, challenging her to see if she dared to let that slap fall. After all, Leo's obsession with her gave her courage. Mother's hand stopped in mid-air. For a moment, no one stopped them. In the end, she still could not bring herself to slap Bella. She could only clutch her chest and lament her suffering. Looking at her, I felt both amusement and pity. In the past years, Mother always carried an invisible arrogance in front of me. I knew she was flattered by many, possessing the complacency of a noble lady. Looking at me, she always saw the rustic appearance of Qingzhou, like the time she was embarrassed by my grandmother at home, something not worth showing off. But now, this arrogant noble lady, when facing the children she poured all her heart into raising, could only shed tears. Besides crying, she seemed to have no other way. Currently, Bella was opposing her. Her beloved son, Quentin, had already left with a gloomy face after arguing with Bella, muttering curses about troublesome women. She certainly did not understand why the people who were always gentle and polite in front of her had changed completely after just a few months. Later, perhaps she would understand that those people were inherently like that. My health was poor, so I had long sat aside watching them argue. The weather was hot, and June was fanning me. When Mother's eyes looked toward me for help, I only covered my mouth with a handkerchief and coughed incessantly. A sick person like this naturally could not see anything. It was not until the gatekeeper came to report that the second master of the Xiao family requested an audience that I asked June to help me stand up. Weakly, I walked past the mother and daughter to welcome the guest. Arthur had been waiting at the door for a long time. Behind him were two servants from the Xiao family, each carrying two silk-wrapped chests. He wore brocade robes and held an ebony fan. His figure was elegant. Although he came from a merchant background, he still had an indescribable nobility about him. He was truly, as rumors described, gentle and mild. Being blocked outside the door did not make him angry. The corners of his mouth always held a slight smile. He bowed slightly and simply asked the brother at the door to announce him. Then, seeing me arrive, he performed full etiquette with polite gestures. Bella originally intended to follow out to watch the excitement. Now her eyes fell on Arthur, and she could not hide her surprise. She muttered next to me that this was the Arthur, but it was a pity he came from a merchant background. Hearing this, I felt bored in my heart. June and Lily beside me also looked discouraged. Therefore, I quickly invited Arthur into the manor on my behalf. When the 4 silk chests passed in front of Bella, she suddenly blocked them. She pretended to ask unintentionally what was inside and wondered when the eldest sister had a friendship with the Xiao family. Arthur maintained a gentle smile. He said the eldest miss of this house bought charcoal from the Xiao family shop every year, supporting the Xiao family's business. These herbs were from the western regions. Although the value was not high, he hoped it showed a bit of gratitude. While Arthur was speaking, Bella had already signaled Sonia to open a corner of a chest. She rummaged around for a while and saw that they were indeed common herbs. A look of contempt immediately appeared on her face. It was not directed at Arthur, but at me. It seemed she had found another point of victory. Her voice became a few degrees sweeter. She called him Brother Xiao, and said he might not know that currently, Mother managed the house. She said that sending these gifts to the east courtyard might not be effective. But seeing that Brother Xiao was so approachable, she would speak to Mother later to ensure they would not stop cooperating with the Xiao family this winter. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the people around them changed. June beside me clenched my hand tightly, but I felt it was fine. Bella had set her sights on Arthur, calling him Brother Xiao. Directly, she couldn't wait to make a scene in front of him. Only did she remember that currently, she was relying on another, Brother Xiao, to support her. Daring to act recklessly now was simply because she had not yet suffered at the hands of the old madam of the Xiao family. Arthur still kept a smile on his lips, but his dark eyes flashed with coldness. His words also became perfunctory. He said, "Oh, really? Then I will find an opportunity to visit the madam of the manor." When Arthur walked with me into the reception hall, Bella continued to follow. I reminded her a few times, asking her to leave first. She immediately acted spoiled, saying that since my health was not good, she wanted to listen to how I spoke with Brother Xiao so she could learn to help Mother later. I smiled gently and asked her if she remembered why my health was not good. The innocent smile on her face cracked. She glanced at Arthur standing nearby with a calm expression. Finally, she left unwillingly. I asked Arthur to send my regards to the madam and the eldest master of the Xiao family. I smiled and ordered the servants to prepare tea. He had just arrived and witnessed a drama, but he did not say much. He quickly had people bring the gifts in for me to inspect, and then left in a hurry. It was said that when he reached the gate of the manor, he coincidentally met Bella again. She pestered Arthur, using insinuating words to probe his attitude towards me, but he deceived her. Because of this, she held a grudge against me once more. When I returned to my courtyard, I removed the layer of herbs on the surface and saw 4 chests full of silver. Amazed, June asked how the goods fetched so much silver this time. I told her that Victor yielded the profits to us. Victor was a merchant who calculated very clearly. Wait until he returned. He would certainly have conditions for the Grand Preceptor's manor. The maids and I opened the food cellar and carefully stored the silver earned from selling ink. I clapped my hands to dust them off, feeling satisfied. Regardless of having this silver, we could live well after leaving the manor. June also had a smile on her face, seemingly full of expectations for the future. I knew Victor wanted something, but I did not expect that half a month later, he would directly find a matchmaker to come and propose marriage. Bella was the first to hear this news. After confirming that the suitor was Victor and not Arthur, she clapped her hands in joy. She said that an older unmarried woman like me pairing with a merchant's son was the most reasonable. But when she saw the bearers of the Xiao family all wearing silk, her face changed again. Perhaps she remembered the Arthur, who looked like an immortal. Bella looked at me with dissatisfaction, glaring. Her voice was sour as she said she was truly jealous that I'd attract a merchant to propose without leaving the house. Before I could say anything, Calvin quickly arrived and spoke up to scold her. He told Bella that before talking about others, she should not forget how her own marriage came about. After speaking, he ignored Bella's colorful expression and turned to bow respectfully to me, greeting me as eldest sister. I held my handkerchief and turned my head to the side, pretending to be hurt by Bella's words, ignoring him. Bella was naturally angry at being spoken to like that by Calvin. Just as she was about to open her mouth, Mother arrived. Bella immediately ran to hold Mother's hand, saying that it was terrible. Any merchant in the city could come to the door to propose to the eldest sister. Mother did not even look at the Xiao family's matchmaker. She immediately refused, saying that my health was not good and I needed to stay at home for another 2 years. I saw surprise appear on the matchmaker's face. I was already 17. In another 2 years, I would be 19. At that time, truly no one would want to marry me. I understood Mother's thoughts. She still hoped I would recover to help her solve this pile of troubles. But I did not want to comply with her anymore. The Xiao family was a famous wealthy family in the capital. Victor, although I did not understand him deeply, was the person I could contact and knew best at the moment. If I wanted to leave the Grand Preceptor's manor, getting married was the fastest way. I wanted to take a gamble. Before the matchmaker left, I stood up and called her back. Word for word I said, "Please tell Victor that Jade agrees." "Jade, are you crazy?" Mother was horrified. "Mo, can a merchant's son be worthy of the Grand Preceptor's daughter? Moreover, you decided on the marriage without asking for my opinion. How can this be called knowing restraint and understanding etiquette?" "Mother." I looked at her with a sorrowful expression. This year, I should have entered the Xiao family and become a wife of the Xiao family. But I was abandoned before I could even pass through the door. Although I am the daughter of the Grand Preceptor, my reputation is already shattered. Furthermore, staying in the manor every day, seeing this familiar scene, I recall that tragic day and only want to die immediately from shame. I looked at her, beating my chest with my hand, my voice choking. Every word seemed to tear at my heart. Mother seemed shocked by my words. After a while she recovered, her eyes dodging slightly. Bella beside her saw this and intended to open her mouth, but was stopped by Calvin's glare. After a long time, Mother slowly said to the matchmaker, "Currently, this matter is too sudden. I need to discuss it further with the family. You should go back first and return another day." After speaking, Mother was also tired and was supported away by Nanny Wang. Passing by me, she stopped and asked one question. "Jade, do you blame Mother?" I lowered my head, bit my lip, and said nothing. After a long time Mother sighed, her tone carrying sadness. "You are too sensible and have suffered a lot." I had said it before, in Mother's heart, 2 buckets of ice were enough to soothe her guilt toward me. Whatever I said or did could not compare to her beloved Bella acting spoiled with a few sentences. If I wanted to ask for anything from her, I definitely had to tear open the pain of the past to exchange for a little bit of her pity. Even though she shed tears now and felt she had delayed me, after a few days, seeing that I was fine, she would put me aside again. Which family's daughter was treated like this? That night, many people asked Victor why he was so sudden. His answer was also very simple. I was afraid she couldn't wait anymore. At that time, I didn't understand these words, but very quickly, I understood. On that day, Father returned home from court. Following beside him was Howard. Having not seen him for a long time, his face was rosy, his spirit soaring, looking very smug. Listening to the news, we learned that Howard had recently been favored by Chancellor Su, who wanted to promote him to work by his side. It was also said that Chancellor Su had actually had his eye on him for a long time. Chancellor Su had also intervened to resolve Quentin's previous matter, simply because he wanted to build a good relationship with Howard. Chancellor Su currently held power, like the sun at noon in the capital. Howard being favored by Chancellor Su was naturally something to be proud of. Hearing Howard speak, Bella's face beamed. She called out, "Big brother," and clung to him, even more attentive than usual. It was just that even the maids beside me felt something was wrong with this whole affair. The eldest young master's essays at school were empty. Out of 10, 9 were hollow. Everyone in the manor knew exactly what his level of knowledge was. Yet, the Chancellor still set his eyes on him. Could the Chancellor also be useless? Sue was much smarter now. Bad-mouthing others in our own courtyard, she also learned to lower her voice. Moreover, with the reputation of the Grand Preceptor's manor being so bad now, could the Chancellor have been deceived? The other maids rolled their eyes, feeling she thought too simply. Only June and Lily, who had been by my side for a long time, were worried. Chancellor Su setting his eyes on him naturally was not because of my innocent and stupid brother. The person he really wanted to reel in was my father. Father, who claimed to be upright and determined to be neutral in the court, trusted by the emperor. Howard was arrogant and conceited, but what about father? Father silently allowing Howard to be so arrogant, did that mean he had tacitly agreed? "Young miss." I heard June lower her voice in my ear. "Chancellor Su has a nephew who is a scoundrel. In the past 2 years, he has married 3 wives. None of them survived more than half a year in his house. Now he wants to marry another one. I am worried that..." She didn't finish her sentence, but I understood. I understood my father well. Outwardly, he was upright, but inside, he craved power more than anyone. It was just that previously, he was cautious and calculated clearly. He knew that in the underground struggles of the court, he was just a small figure without backing. Siding with any party could lead to being sacrificed in the next struggle. So, he chose to keep himself poor to show loyalty to the emperor. But that was before. I had long asked June to go to the warehouse to probe for news. The household still only had father's thin monthly salary as income, but the spending in the manor had suddenly increased back to how it was before. Even more so, while prices were high. I immediately understood that father had started to accept this, perhaps starting from Quentin's matter, or maybe even before that, when he allowed his daughter to seduce Leo to keep the Xiao family's heart. Perhaps since then, he had made calculations. I had been abandoned by father. Finally, I understood what Victor's phrase, "afraid she couldn't wait anymore," meant. I told the maids in the courtyard to monitor the news and movements in the manor, not missing any details. The news I received came in scattered pieces. June said 2 days ago, someone brought 2 carts of gifts to request an audience, but they entered through the side door. Father never allowed family members to accept gifts before, but this time he opened the door for them. When that person came out, he was smiling. Bella sneaked out one night with her maid through the side door, and didn't return until the moon was high. As for father, the maid in the study said she heard father say that there would be a happy event in the family soon. Hearing this, I truly despaired of father. Clearly, it was the middle of a hot summer, but I felt cold all over. I originally planned to delay until the Empress Dowager's birthday, when I would follow the imperial consorts to Xiling to pray for the nation. Waiting until they gradually forgot about me, I would be fine as long as I didn't stay in this house. But unexpectedly, father truly had no fatherly affection left. In the end, he still wanted to use me. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but have red eyes. If, back when the engagement was broken, I had suffered a blow and then encountered this matter, I fear I truly could not have lived. Fortunately, since childhood, I was used to living independently. Going through these things had tempered my character to be stronger than anyone. I gritted my teeth, raised my hand to wipe my tears, and told Lily to go tell Victor that I wanted to see him as soon as possible. Father wanted to use me to cling to Chancellor Su. After all, I was sick and not favored by Leo. Marrying that scoundrel and dying would be fine. As long as I died while holding the position of the official wife, the relationship between the two families would be maintained. As for Bella marrying into the Xiao family, Leo loved her, so later he would naturally help the Grand Preceptor's Manor for her sake. Father didn't even hide his intentions. The next day, he called me to the study. With just a few words, he gave the order. "I have found a good marriage for you. The other party is from the Chancellor's Manor, of noble birth. These days, you stay in your room and wait for the wedding day. The son of the Su family has married 4 times. Father marrying his daughter directly to him. Will it affect the reputation of the Grand Preceptor's Manor?" I was afraid he would see the coldness on my face, which might cause complications later, so I deliberately lowered my eyebrows. I put on an expression of being dedicated to the Grand Preceptor's Manor and asked about reputation. I heard father laugh contemptuously above my head. He opened his mouth without any concealment, with a posture I had never seen him show before others. Only when power is not strong enough does one need a reputation to compensate. But now, the Grand Preceptor's Manor no longer needs those things, right? Finally, he had gained the Emperor's trust and also grasped the olive branch from the Chancellor's Manor. Now, my father was no longer someone running errands for others, but like Chancellor Su, standing behind to direct operations. This was indeed the time for him to be smug. I stood up. Bella, in splendid clothes, had entered the room at some point, followed by my 3 younger brothers. Bella's head was full of gold hairpins, like a precious bird. She lightly ran to father's side, swinging his arm and acting spoiled, looking adorable. But when she turned her head toward me, her eyes were full of malice. "Eldest sister can marry into the Su Manor. It is truly a great match. Master Leo and I will both bless sister." "Right, the Su Manor is a prestigious family. Eldest sister marrying there is a supreme glory. You should cherish it." Howard also chimed in. To this moment, he still thought Chancellor Su had set his eyes on him, so he granted the Grand Preceptor's Manor this marriage. He looked at me with arrogant eyes, as if I were the one enjoying blessings because of him. As for my father, hearing these words, he only smiled gently and stroked Bella's hair. telling her she was also a young lady waiting to be married and needed to learn how to be reserved. Later, when she went to her husband's house, she could not lack rules. Seeing this scene of father-daughter harmony, hatred rose in my heart for the first time. My good father. He had watched me grow up, holding me in his arms when I was small. But now, how did he look at me? A useless chess piece, or a tool that could be discarded at any time? I lowered my head, my hands inside my sleeves slowly clenching until blue veins popped out, yet I still could not quell the anger in my heart. Eldest sister. Calvin came to my side at some point and lowered his voice. Eldest sister is not in good health. Let me take you back. Father waved his hand to dismiss us. When we reached the door, he immediately said, I heard the Sioux family is a place that eats people. If sister doesn't want to marry, I will beg father. Beg for what? You just begged already, I said. Calvin spoke boldly, but seeing my cold eyes, he gradually lost confidence. Surely, he also realized the grand preceptor's Manor was never as he imagined. When I thought he had lost heart and would turn away, Calvin called me again. I saw him clenching his fists as if he had made a huge decision. He looked at me with determined eyes and said, If sister wants to leave here, I will help you. I didn't expect Calvin to have such a conscience. I was silent for a moment before telling him the truth. Calvin, you don't have that ability. Moreover, I looked toward Quentin, who was watching me with gloomy eyes from the window behind. Do you think your relatives can become complete enemies just for a little benefit? Do you have the courage to confront everything? No. I knew Calvin was unreliable and didn't expect anything from him. After speaking, I walked past his pale face and went straight out. That afternoon, Lily replaced June to go out shopping. After many transfers, she brought back a letter from Honest Master Xiao. In the letter, he said there was a turn of events. Now was not the time to meet. He told me I must attend the palace banquet in the next few days. Although I didn't know the reason and hadn't heard news of a banquet in the palace, from the moment I received the news, my maids and I began to prepare, using a portion of the money from selling mud to reconnect relationships within the manor. After a few days, news indeed came from the palace. Lily went to ask around. It turned out that because the hot weather had persisted for months, the drought in the Huangzhou region had become more severe. Now, prices were rising everywhere. Only the capital temporarily maintained supply. In other places, countless people had starved to death. Victor had his own channels and received the news a step earlier than people in the capital, so he told me to prepare early. The emperor had issued a decree of self-reproach in the Great Hall. Reading the letter from the prefect of Hangzhou, he shed tears. As for the inner palace, Her Highness was also preparing to organize a banquet. Everyone understood what was about to happen. Even the emperor would personally go to the altar of heaven to pray for rain. We, the daughters of officials nurtured by the people, naturally had to follow Her Highness to Xiling Temple to pray for the nation. This was originally something we should do, but many people didn't want to. They thought of ways to avoid this banquet, simply because going this time meant staying at Xiling Temple for at least 2 years. 2 years for unmarried young ladies was not a short time. Wasting their youth, even if they returned with a good reputation, it would be difficult to discuss marriage. Moreover, the emperor and Her Highness were benevolent. At most, they would give a light warning, not a heavy punishment. After this idea was set, in one night, half of the noble ladies in the capital simultaneously fell seriously ill. Even Bella, who went out every day, hurriedly fell and hurt her leg, closing her courtyard to recover. Father also had this intention for me. He called someone to instruct me not to go out these days. I leaned against the bed, listening silently. I thought, if it were a few years ago, Father would have probably wanted to push me out quickly so the Grand Preceptor's Manor would have a good reputation. After all, in his eyes, I was just a tool, not a person. Why would he care if I wasted my youth? Many fathers didn't care like that. Regardless of the people guarding my courtyard, on the day of the palace banquet, I still found an opportunity to run out. I intended to go straight to Mother's room, but unexpectedly, Quentin was standing guard at the door. He immediately recognized that I was wearing Lily's clothes and pulled me forcefully to the side, warning me with a sinister look. He said, "Jade, this is your fate. It is best to obediently accept it. Do not think of playing any tricks." I threw his hand off my wrist. Without beating around the bush, I spoke directly. I told him he knew that among Father's 3 sons, he was the least valued. Therefore, he had accepted money from the Shu family, wanting to use that money to build a future for himself and force Father to re-evaluate his worth. And then what? I asked. Quentin's eyes darkened as he stared at me. He asked if I wanted to report this to father or if I intended to use this matter to threaten him. I rubbed my reddened wrist, frowned at him, and said I wanted to remind him of something. If I truly married into the Sue family, the ones with a close relationship to the Sue family would only be father and Howard. At that time, he would truly have no chance left. Quentin fell silent, frowning and thinking carefully. Clearly, he had absorbed my words, therefore I continued. I reminded him that when he started studying, besides learning from his teacher, he was raised by my side. I was his first teacher. When I managed the household, I taught him how to balance everything and win people's hearts. He had used those lessons to form cliques at school. Whenever someone was better than him or refused to cooperate, he would lead his lackeys to bully and suppress them. Speaking of this, I gave a sarcastic smile. I said that all these years, I was the one who had to apologize for the troubles he caused. I knew exactly what kind of person he was. He could not stand anyone being better than him. He would not want to see Howard rely on the Sue family to stand firm in the manor. Hearing this, Quentin suddenly raised his head. Having his mind read by me, his eyes gradually revealed a fierce look. But I was not afraid of him. I looked straight into his eyes and asked in a low voice, "Now, can I go in?" It was only a momentary confrontation. Quentin made his decision. He stepped aside to let me enter. Before that, he ordered all the servants in Mother's room to leave. When I entered the room, Mother was sitting in front of a pure wood mirror, looking dazed, lost in thought. Seeing me suddenly appear, she instinctively flinched, and the object in her hand fell to my feet. I bent down to pick it up and discovered it was the silver hairpin she had given me before. Unexpectedly, when I took that hairpin to pawn, she still kept one. I took a few steps forward, gently placed the hairpin in her hand, and then knelt straight down. "Jade, you are making things difficult for Mother." Mother's voice trembled. I raised my head and saw her close her eyes in pain. I admitted that was true, but all my life I had lived in hardship. Previously, I thought those hardships would make Mother understand my trust and grievances, to share a little love with me. To this day, I dared not hope for those things anymore. After saying that, I bent down, placing my palms on the ground and bowing my head before Mother. "I only have one wish. I want to live, Mother." When I called out Mother, with emphasis, she trembled as if waking from a dream. Her face was a mix of confusion and vagueness. Finally, she spoke with a reluctant voice. She admitted that she had owed me much over the years. She told me to take Nanny Wang with me to the carriage today. After this matter, I should consider that I no longer had this mother. I bowed my head again and did not dare to stand up for a long time. Finally, Mother called Nanny Wang to redo my makeup. She said that after all, I was a young lady of the manor. Entering the palace required dignity. Nanny Wang understood, stepped forward to undo my hair, and applied makeup again. Nanny Wang had been with me the longest. I always trusted her skills. Mother looked at me through the mirror and spoke with emotion. She said she hadn't looked closely over the years, but looking now, she saw that Jade truly resembled her when she was young. Nanny Wang also chimed in, saying people said that when Madam gave birth to the young miss, she walked through the gates of hell once, so the young miss being sensible was naturally to repay kindness, just like Madam. This sentence seemed to touch Mother's pain. She turned away and took a handkerchief to wipe her tears. A while later, she pulled my hand and said it was time. Previously, Father had sent someone to invite Mother. She claimed to have a headache and told Father to go first. Since Father was not at the manor, she took me out smoothly. Getting off the carriage at the palace gate, we met the carriages of nobles and officials arriving, but no young ladies were seen getting off. I heard Mother sigh, and then she went into the banquet alone. I didn't know if she sighed for my future or worried about her situation when facing Father later. When I followed the guide inside, I was called back by a cold voice. A stranger stood in front of me. "Jade, you dare to come? Consider the people of the Grand Preceptor's Manor to have some backbone." After observing me for a few seconds, Ruby spoke. Because she hated Bella, she also disliked me, the one who was always dragged into things by Bella and had to clean up her mess. In her eyes, Bella and I were birds of a feather. In our previous meetings, she never gave me a good look. At that moment, she still held her head high when talking to me. Her voice contained a bit of sarcasm as she asked if I wasn't afraid of wasting my youth, since life at Xiling was harsh and praying to Buddha made people gaunt. I was used to Bella's fawning face, so Ruby's sharp appearance was somewhat adorable. I asked, "What is there to be afraid of?" Hearing this, Ruby held her head even higher. I noticed she always kept her back straight, pride was evident on her face. She said that the clothes and items the nobles in this capital used all came from the support of the common people. Without the labor of the people, there would be no talk of good times. This was originally something nobles should do. She said she was different from those cowardly turtles. After speaking, she walked away aggressively. I could only shake my head helplessly and follow. When I hurried to the palace gate, I encountered men walking from the opposite direction. Among them was my father. When his eyes stopped on me, his face sank. He signaled the people beside him. Father's servants immediately stepped forward, intending to capture me and take me away. I took a few steps back, looking at father with hatred. This unprecedented resistance made father even more furious. He quickly approached me, raising his hand high, his face revealing clear malice. The servants surrounding me saw the situation was unavoidable. But at that moment, the situation suddenly changed. Isn't that the sister from the Liu family? You usually don't go out, but you came today. Come sit with me quickly, we have much to talk about. Ruby's voice rang out from the gate, high-pitched, causing half the people in the room to look in our direction. She acted as if she didn't see the servants, directly pushing them aside and linking her arm with mine. Her friends followed, surrounding me and pulling me to a seat amidst the scent of young girls. I looked back and saw father still standing in the same spot, watching me sit down. His face was cold under the lights, becoming increasingly gloomy. Hey, what are you dazing off for? Don't tell me you regret it now and want to be a cowardly turtle. Ruby nudged me with her elbow. Seeing I was still gloomy, she said, Jade, don't let me look down on you. After speaking, she turned to discuss with her friends. Mother sat at the opposite table chatting with the officials' wives. Since I entered the palace, she hadn't looked at me once. The chatter quickly fell silent when the emperor and empress arrived. I usually didn't attend palace banquets. In my heart, I always thought the emperor and empress were noble and kind people illuminated by candlelight. At this moment, Ruby and I bowed our heads to listen to the emperor's instructions. He said heaven had borne a disaster, and each of us must rectify ourselves, love the people, and pray for heaven to dispel the heat and bestow rain. When the emperor spoke with majestic dignity, the female relatives were scared pale. The empress timely followed up with a kind look, soothing the fear in everyone's hearts. When she asked if anyone was willing to go to Xiling with her to pray, Ruby was the first to stand up. After bowing reverently to the emperor and empress, she spoke firmly. She said Ruby, daughter of the Minister of Revenue, was willing to follow the empress to Xiling and stay there until the prayer ceremony was complete. Hearing this, the emperor on the high seat clapped and laughed, praising the Song family for having a good daughter. Seeing this, Ruby's friends also stood up and asked to follow. Several officials' wives also wanted to go, but were smilingly rejected by the empress. She said officials in office, their wives, and sons inheriting the business could not leave the capital. That was the emperor's rule. The scene temporarily became quiet again. Is there anyone else who wants to go with me? The empress asked from above. I clenched my handkerchief and stood up. Jade, daughter of the Grand Preceptor's Manor, volunteers to follow Her Highness. I knelt in the middle of the hall, bowing in etiquette. The empress smiled and nodded. Then, father's worried voice rang out. My daughter already has an engagement and is about to get married. I beg Her Highness to withdraw the order. If it were in the past, the benevolent empress would certainly have exempted a young lady about to get married from this duty. But now, the manager beside the emperor shouted loudly. Seeing this, father hurriedly knelt down. In the gradually freezing atmosphere, the emperor suddenly laughed loudly. Then he asked father. I remember the marriage of the Liu family was changed to the second miss. Why is there a sudden engagement? After a while I felt father's aura beside me change. A few words from the emperor clearly showed his attention to the Grand Preceptor's Manor. Father's next word had to be answered carefully. Answering incorrectly was the crime of deceiving the sovereign. But answering correctly would reveal his relationship with the Su Manor, inviting the emperor to investigate. Either way would destroy father's dream of power. Silence fell. Cold sweat on someone's forehead fell drop by drop, hitting the blue stone floor. I heard father gulp nervously, take a deep breath, and say tremblingly, my little daughter is naughty. I fear she will displease Her Highness later. I beg the emperor and Her Highness for forgiveness. The emperor's reaction showed his silent dignity. Realizing this, I ignored the surroundings and tried to bow my head lower so that father's wrong words would not implicate me. When everyone thought father would face a great crime today, suddenly the emperor laughed again and said, "The eldest daughter of the Liu family, I see she is very obedient." In this situation, father dared not say anything more. He only repeatedly answered yes and pulled me out. When the banquet ended and we returned home, father dragged me out of the carriage and pulled me into the ancestral hall, forcing me to kneel before the ancestors' spirit tablets. His face was pale as he said that in a few days, he would have mother go to the palace to ask the empress to exempt me from the task because I was seriously ill. For these 2 days, I had to kneel in the ancestral hall to reflect on myself, but I just glanced at him calmly and said, "Father, I am not sick." I stood up straight, even facing the ancestors' spirit tablets. I felt no shame. "You want to oppose your father?" He lowered his voice, sounding like a threat. I felt no remorse, looking at him and saying, "Father, do you remember the days in Qingzhou? Back then, father was a poor scholar, and mother was a wealthy young lady. After marrying father, her family met with misfortune. She had to pawn clothes and sell hairpins to buy books for father. The family often suffered from hunger. Compared to now, it is truly a difference between heaven and earth." I looked around at the lights and the high spirit tablets of the Liu family, asking him loudly, "You have a spacious house and many servants. Is the current situation not enough? Father must know that when water is full it overflows. If you are too greedy, you will never know satisfaction." The emperor has warned father now, but father still does not want to stop. "Father, it is enough." "Stupid woman, what do you know about principles?" Father roared, cutting me off. He angrily raised his large hand, intending to hit me, but I dodged. I looked at him coldly, walked to the main door, opened it, and turned back to look at him. Committing suicide before praying for blessings is a great taboo. If father is not afraid that I will drag the whole Liu family to death, then go ahead and force me. After saying that, I slammed the door and walked away. I only heard him angrily laughing behind my back, cursing repeatedly. "Good, very good. From today on, I do not have this daughter. Consider that the Liu family never gave birth to you." "I wish for nothing else," I replied, walking away without stopping. The loud quarrel between father and me at the ancestral hall naturally attracted much attention. On the way back, Bella appeared from the side of the road, her face full of gloating. "What crime did eldest sister commit to make father so angry?" she said, glancing around and pretending to guess. "Surely sister didn't make a joke of herself in front of the emperor and empress." Unexpectedly, after a crisp slap sound, Bella held her red cheek, looking at me in disbelief. A moment later, she intended to hit back, but I held her wrist tightly. "I have accepted the empress's invitation to pray for blessings on behalf of the Liu family. If anything happens to me, the one to go in my place will be you," I said, leaning close to her ear. "Tell me, Leo has waited for you for 2 years with dedication. Can the powerful old madam of the Xiao family wait? In 2 years when you return, you can only be a concubine in the Xiao family. I advise you not to push me, Bella." Bella was pushed down by me. When she stood up, her eyes were full of tears. She stepped back 2 steps, wanting to say something but daring not to. Clearly, she had received a great shock, simply because she had never heard such words or seen me like this. Standing under my gaze, she trembled, and finally turned and ran into the night. I looked at her panicked, retreating figure, finding it amusing, and couldn't help but laugh out loud. My words about replacing her were just a fabrication. Bella participated in palace events more than I did. If she had spared some attention from dressing up ostentatiously and fighting for men, she would have known I was lying. After seeing Bella off, I turned and saw Calvin stepping out of the shadows. I jerked my wrist. "Why? You also want to test me?" Calvin did not answer. He only bowed respectfully to me and said, "Eldest sister has achieved what she wanted. Congratulations." He didn't mean to cause trouble, but I still didn't have much patience for him. I didn't need to pretend with anyone anymore. Seeing him stand there silently, I didn't wait for him to speak and walked past him. "It's fine." I saw June holding a lantern waiting for me. When Calvin and I passed each other, he suddenly said, "I am truly a coward, not worthy of eldest sister's teaching." I did not stop. Calvin's voice was gentle, as if speaking to me and to himself. "Eldest sister taught me this lesson, enough for me to ponder all my life. I will try to obtain courage like sister." When he finished speaking, I was already far away. June checked me from head to toe, and seeing I was fine, she helped me slowly back to my room. Calvin was right about one thing: what I wanted to do was done. From now on, whatever the Liu family thought, or how they lived had nothing to do with me. 3 days later, I would set off with Her Highness to Xiling to pray. During these 3 days, the gate of my courtyard was more desolate and deserted than ever. Father thought this was a way to punish me. In his eyes, a child who lost the protection of parents would have no future. But he didn't know that this made me even freer. Lily, the other maids, and I moved the silver accumulated over a long time, and then went out to meet Victor. He was indeed a man of affection and righteousness. Knowing that no one in the manor would prepare luggage for me, he directly said he had prepared a convoy. I just needed to bring them along on the day of departure. Hearing this, I immediately refused. I was going to pray for blessings, not to enjoy blessings. Seeing this, Victor looked moved and said, "Miss Jade, I knew you were a capable person from our first meeting. I realized you were the girl most suitable for me in the world." "I am." Arthur coughed lightly beside him. Victor immediately corrected his words. "But being capable doesn't mean having to live miserably. I earn money to provide for my wife. Whether she is my wife or not yet married, I will not let her suffer." Only now did I understand when Victor's feelings for me actually began. It turned out it was from the first time we met. That time, a celebrity in the capital held a birthday party. Victor and I were both invited and pushed to the periphery. He was a handsome man. Just looking at his appearance, he seemed majestic and extraordinary. But at that time, he had not taken over the Xiao family. He was just a rich young master that the nobles didn't value. He didn't want to socialize with them. Seeing me dressed, simply sitting on the edge, he assumed I was an ordinary person like him, and took the initiative to ask my name. When he knew I was from the Grand Preceptor's manor, he was extremely surprised. Then he was curious seeing me eating tofu dipped in tea, leaving the plate of meat full in front of me, and ignoring the exquisite pastries. I explained to him that in the noble circle of the capital, there was a rule not to finish all the food. Eating it all would be laughed at. Therefore, when eating, I tried to fill up first. Among these foods, only pastries were not filling, so I left them, ate the meat first, then drank water. Eating a meal until 6 or 7 parts full was enough to last until the next meal. As for the remaining pastries, they were actually the easiest to carry and preserve. After the party, servants usually took them home for children or the elderly, so it wasn't wasteful. Hearing this, Victor was somewhat stunned. Seeing that, I continued to explain. The refined rice of the capital was actually not filling. For heavy labor, one needed to mix in coarse rice, the cheapest dried shrimp from the market, bought by the caddy, roasted and soaked in vinegar, was delicious when eaten in spare time. There was also the method of using the least money to make top-quality ink seals from lotus silk. I told him all these things. As I spoke, Victor listened without looking away, his eyes becoming hotter and hotter. He immediately said he was very interested in lotus silk ink and wanted to take my batch to sell in the western regions. Not long after, when Victor followed the family head to the western regions for the first time, he took the initiative to find someone to contact me. He was truly a born merchant. When selling, his words were like pouring honey into your ears. He sold lotus silk ink at a price I dared not imagine. I thought that with Victor's shrewdness, he would take a share of the profits. But he didn't take a single copper coin, all the proceeds were given to me. Previously, I didn't understand his actions. At first, I thought he wanted a discount once or twice to cooperate with me long term. Later, seeing it many times, I thought he saw I lived more miserably than other nobles, so he sympathized with me. Now thinking back, it turned out he was taking care of his own lifelong event. Victor, seeing I hadn't spoken for a long time, seemed a bit embarrassed. Under Arthur's teasing gaze, he raised his cup and drained it. Having just bravely faced my smile, he became awkward again. "Miss Jade, I know," I gently continued. "I just didn't expect to form a bond with the eldest master. Since then, the eldest master has chivalrously helped. Jade records it in her heart. Naturally, I clearly understand the eldest master's heart." Hearing this, Victor clearly breathed a sigh of relief. I couldn't help but chuckle in my heart. The merchant, usually glib as if his mouth were oiled, and was now so awkward. It was just that I still had a knot in my heart. Thinking over and over, I opened my mouth. "Jade bypassed parents to promise marriage to you, which was already improper. Now going to Xiling for 2 years, I don't know if I'm the eldest master. This is not a problem." Victor suddenly stood up excitedly, startling me and the few maids. "Ahem, Arthur coughed softly twice beside him. Victor realized, hurriedly sat down and explained, "I travel often for business. Adding 1 or 2 years is fine. Consider it accumulating more. Speaking of this, he shyly stared at the teacup on the table. His resolute eyebrows showed embarrassment as he laughed awkwardly twice. Accumulating a bit more money to marry a wife. Paffed, cough cough cough. This time, Arthur really choked on his tea. Perhaps he had never seen his big brother so foolish. He seemed a bit embarrassed, covering half his face with a fan, looking around once, and then bowing to apologize to me. My big brother is so happy he's confused. He offended the young miss. I hope the young miss forgives him. I feared Master Victor was too happy on the way back. This time, Arthur personally arranged a carriage to take me back. When the carriage just arrived at the Grand Preceptor's Manor gate, I saw a lively scene. Recently, Bella had truly met with bad luck. Just after being taught a lesson by me, she encountered a blow from the old madam of the Xiao family. I saw she hired 4 sedan bearers carrying a shabby sedan chair made of blue cloth decorated with flowers, and called 2 ugly matchmakers to the Grand Preceptor's Manor gate. They started shouting loudly, calling for the second miss of the Grand Preceptor's Manor to come out to the sedan. The noise was so loud that father, who was resting at home, had to step out, his face green. He looked at the matchmakers banging on the door and asked what was happening. What is it? Naturally, it's a big happy event. Our master and mistress said the second miss of the Liu family has spent all the betrothal gifts prepared for her. So, she can directly pass through the door now. The matchmaker spoke gleefully. The surrounding crowd watching the excitement also laughed. Before father could speak, another matchmaker quickly chimed in. Exactly. The master and especially our mistress saw that your family's days were difficult, and the second miss had to come to find our young master to beg for food and clothing. So, they exempted your family from the dowry. This is truly double happiness. Hearing this sentence, father had nowhere to hide his face. In the crowd watching the excitement, someone led the shouting, and everyone cheered, calling for the second miss to come out and get on the bridal sedan. Father was so angry that he could only turn around to look for Bella's figure among the maids and older female servants. Seeing a good show, I didn't rush to get off the carriage but lifted the curtain to follow father's gaze. Bella was hiding inside the door, having never seen such a scene before, her face pale with fear. Under father's stern gaze, she was brought before everyone. I ask you, did you spend all the money of the eldest master of the Xiao family? Father lowered his voice and shouted, his face stern. Bella stammered, unable to finish her sentence. A matchmaker beside her sudden cried out, stepping forward and pointing at Bella's skirt, speaking loudly. Isn't this the fabric woven from pearl threads that our young master just ordered from a fabric shop in the south? Made into clothes so quickly, our young master truly spoils the young lady. 100 years of happiness, 100 years of happiness. Bella trembled, immediately shaking her head and trying to explain. But as soon as the words left her mouth, she was interrupted by another matchmaker. The hairpin the young lady is wearing on her head is an heirloom of the Xiao family. Since you are already wearing the items, hurry up and get on the sedan. Wish the young lady and the young master harmony. After speaking, the 2 matchmakers simultaneously reached out to drag Bella into the sedan. Nuff. Father shouted loudly to stop this farce. He glared at the 2 matchmakers, and they immediately let go. Bella cried loudly, running into the group of maids and servants of the Liu Manor, sobbing and hiding behind her maid's back. If the old madam of the Xiao family doesn't want this marriage, just break off the engagement. But you are too excessive, treating the Grand Preceptor's Manor as if there were no people, daring to rush to the door to cause trouble, father said. Hearing this, the 2 matchmakers glanced at each other, their faces full of contempt. Then please, master, teach your daughter well. Don't let her go begging men for money every day. After all, your daughter complains to our young master all day, saying she is treated poorly in your manor. Our mistress wanting to welcome her back is out of kindness to save her from the boiling water and burning fire. The voices of these 2 matchmakers were full of sarcasm, not fearing father's threats of breaking off the engagement. Watching this drama from the side, I couldn't help laughing out loud. The Xiao family had been officials for generations. The master of the Xiao family was the Marquis of Martial Peace, having merit in protecting the country. Their family background far exceeded the Grand Preceptor's Manor countless times, but becoming in-laws with the Grand Preceptor's Manor was agreed upon by the old madam of the Xiao family. One reason was that if Leo wanted a match of equal status, he could only marry a princess, thereby ruining his future career. Second, the old madam feared the emperor's suspicion, So she chose the daughter of the Grand Preceptor to marry. But when the engagement was first made, there was joy later. It was not so. At 12, I helped mother manage the household. At 14, I was engaged to Leo. At 17, I was still kept at home by mother. Not only was my age dragged out, but also Leo's. The old madam of the Xiao family had long been dissatisfied with me, but because I acted cautiously and revealed no faults, she could only hold a grudge against the Grand Preceptor's Manor. Later, rumors spread that the younger sister stole the elder sister's fiancé. Forming a relationship with such a person made the old madam of the Xiao family feel she lost face, but Leo liked Bella, defying his mother to engage with Bella. Over time, the old madam of the Xiao family hated Bella to the bone, hoping father would take the initiative to break off the engagement. When hearing the words, "break off the engagement," Bella was still naive. It wasn't until her maid whispered a few words in her ear that Bella looked terrified, crying and running to kneel in front of father. "Father, Leo and I truly love each other. I don't want to break off the engagement with the Xiao family." Father's previous action was using the threat of breaking off the engagement to advance. Even if the Xiao family didn't hold back, at least it would save some face for the Grand Preceptor's Manor. But Bella's plea truly pulled father's face to the ground and trampled on it. June stood next to me and handed me a handful of melon seeds. We sat together, cracking melon seeds while watching the developments. "You." Father pointed at Bella in anger, his hands shaking. It took a long time for him to calm down. "You are truly an unfilial, shameless child." After speaking, he shouted at the surrounding older female servants, "What are you still standing there for? Take her to the ancestral hall." Then he chased away the Xiao family's matchmakers. Seeing this, the crowd watching the excitement slowly dispersed. I heard those who had walked far away still discussing spiritedly. I didn't expect the second miss of the Liu family to have no self-respect like that. That's right. Before they said she had a good reputation and was loved most by mother and father. You say, why did she do that? Why? She was naturally afraid that losing the marriage with the Xiao family would lead to being sent by her father to the room of Chancellor Su's nephew. That would truly be falling from heaven to hell. Compared to that, what does face matter? Bella must have thought it through and decided to sacrifice. It was only a pity she still lacked a bit of intelligence. This was not the right circumstance. She made father lose face, but what did she gain? Bella was punished heavily. I thought I could finally have some peace. Unexpectedly, I met her again. Truly, I underestimated her determination to be annoying. She knelt before the ancestors' spirit tablets all night. Her limbs were no longer agile. Yet the next day, before I left the house, she dragged her injury-filled body to the gate of my courtyard to block the way. "Yesterday, a servant saw you get off Arthur's carriage." I didn't expect the first sentence from Bella's mouth to be this. Then she continued. "First you offered yourself to eldest Master Xiao. Then you ran to seduce Arthur. Jade, you are truly the most shameless woman in the world." She spoke with a voice full of resentment, as if wanting to vent all the anger in her heart. I saw she was speaking entirely worthless words, so I intended to walk directly past her. When I passed her, Bella suddenly used all her strength to lunge at me. "Jade, you wait. Wait until you leave here. This house will no longer have a place for you. You will no longer have a chance to return and block my way. I will definitely make you regret it. Then you will have to kneel at my feet and beg." I was annoyed by her noise and couldn't bear it. Just as I was about to push her away, Lily was one step faster and slapped her hard on the face. Bella was stunned for a moment, seeming unable to believe it. Then her voice suddenly pitched high. "A lowly maid, where do you get the nerve to treat me like this? I want to beat her to death." "Sorry," I interrupted. "The eldest miss has burned my deed of sale. I am now a free person. I hit whoever I want." Lily stood with a straight back, taking 2 pieces of broken silver from her pocket and throwing them at Bella's feet. Without waiting for her reaction, she continued loudly, "I heard the second miss lives poorly in the manor and has to rely on her fiancé for help. This is a small token of my regard. Consider it compensation for the second miss for a slap." Bella had never been treated like this. She screamed for the guards in the manor to catch this lowly maid. "I want to beat her to death. Beat her quickly." "Calm down, Bella. You don't have the right to arbitrarily take someone's life." I took 2 steps forward, gently lifting her face. My fingers brushed over the red swelling on her cheek as I spoke gently. "Moreover, if because of this I miss the appointment to meet Her Highness, the entire manor will be implicated by you. How do you think the Emperor and Her Highness will punish you?" The punishment might not be heavy, but my voice sounded truly terrifying. I felt Bella trembling under my hand. I dropped my hand and patted her shoulder lightly. Don't make me angry. Finally, I successfully took Lily out of the manor. Lily insisted on seeing me off, saying she would only be at ease seeing me depart. I worried Bella would take revenge on her later, so I instructed her to seek refuge with the Xiao family after I left. As for the other little maids, I had also made proper arrangements. Now my courtyard in the manor was empty. I held Lily's hand tightly as she cried continuously while holding my sleeve. I comforted her with a few words and turned to leave. When I got into the carriage, I suddenly had a familiar feeling. It seemed a gaze from afar was watching me. I turned back and saw Victor standing at the end of the street waving at me. He smiled brightly, his mouth mouthing words I couldn't hear clearly. It seemed he wanted to tell me not to worry about anything here. My heart suddenly felt light. I smiled in response, then lowered the carriage curtain and sat securely in my seat. Ruby was already sitting in the carriage. At this moment she was resting her chin on her hand, looking out the window. Hearing me enter, she only indifferently turned her head to look, and then turned back to look out the window, leaving me with a very awkward appearance. Along the way, she maintained that attitude, silently dazing. She didn't talk to me, and I didn't take the initiative to talk to her. On the way, I calculated plans for after arriving at Xiling Temple. Her Highness would only stay at Xiling Temple for 2 months. If I could show enough sincerity in these 2 months for Her Highness to remember me more. Later when leaving the temple, I could ask Her Highness to grant a marriage for me and Victor. If successful, everything afterwards would be certain. At that time, if the maids still wanted to follow me, they could stay as my dowry. If they had someone they liked, I would accept them as adopted sisters and personally arrange their marriages. Thinking of this, a strong emotion surged in my heart. I saw a completely different life opening up before my eyes. Just tasting a little sweetness was enough for me to use all my strength to move forward. Finally, I could escape the terrible and oppressive days and live for myself once. Not only that, I also thought if eldest Master Xiao truly loved me, then for the rest of my life, I would live happily with the person who truly loved me. This was my strength. I knew how to cherish good things and never wasted the kindness of others. Thinking of this, unwittingly, I also rested my chin on my hand looking out the window, a smile on my lips, sitting in the other corner of the carriage like Ruby. When we arrived at Xiling and shared a room, Ruby and I still hadn't said a word to each other. Ruby seemed to be sulking at someone. Every gesture she made carried anger. Although I didn't understand what was happening, thinking the person who offended her wasn't me, I arranged my bedding and lay down to rest on the soft pillow Lily had sewn for me. In the middle of the night, I was shaken awake by Ruby. Under the moonlight shining through the window, I saw she looked truly haggard. Perhaps she hadn't slept at all. She looked at me, hesitating for a long time before speaking. Today you left home. Did Calvin come to see you? Hay and I are not close. Whether he came or not, I don't care, I said, then yawned and intended to lie down to sleep again. Wait. Ruby hurriedly pulled me back. I haven't finished asking. Tell me, what has Calvin been doing lately? I don't know and I don't care. I was a bit cranky, curling up in the blanket and turning my back. Ruby didn't give up and continued to shake me. I pushed her away. I don't understand how your eyes work when you set your sights on him, I muttered under the blanket. Ruby was silent for a while, as if seriously thinking about that question. When I was about to fall asleep again, I heard her voice, dry and hoarse. It was just that at first, I cared a little. Then everyone around said he was good. I couldn't have him, so it became an obsession. She sounded frustrated. After all, feelings are inherently messy things. Moreover, youth often likes to be impulsive. I was also impulsive, going to like someone who doesn't like me. She sighed, sat down by my bed, and reached out to poke me through the layer of the blanket. Jade, are you really sleeping? Not saying anything. I was annoyed by her disturbance and sat up, speaking in one breath. First, others said he was good, probably because you praised him first. As for what kind of person he really is, you must see for yourself. Youth likes to be impulsive, but that doesn't mean you should ruin yourself. Secondly, from your parents to your siblings, everyone around you loves you and treats you like a treasure. Why should you make yourself miserable for someone who treats you poorly? This is unfair to those who love you. Finally, if you disturb my sleep again, tomorrow I will nail you to the door so you cannot go out. After saying that, I buried my face in the pillow and went back to sleep. Ruby was startled by me. She sat there in a daze for a while before gently returning to her bed. The next morning, when she looked at me, her eyes held a hint of respect. I ignored her, hurriedly groomed myself, and went to the courtyard to do my morning exercises. Afterward, I went to the Buddha hall to burn incense and pray. I thought that by arriving early, I would definitely leave a good impression on Her Highness. But when I arrived, I saw that Her Highness had been kneeling before the Buddha all night. She wore white robes, a string of Bodhi beads around her wrist, and the scent of incense surrounded her. Her eyes were closed, her face compassionate and reverent like a pure bodhisattva. Her Highness recognized me, smiled kindly, and reached out her hand. "You are Jade, correct? Good child, come here." I walked quickly to her side, bowed respectfully, and sat down next to her. Then, I recited scriptures with Her Highness. My back was no longer as straight as before. In front of Her Highness and the Buddha, I felt ashamed of my calculations. Thus, I spent the first month and a half at Xiling Temple by Her Highness's side. During that time, a small incident occurred. A refugee from Hangzhou, covered in injuries, broke into Xiling Temple. At that time, the noble ladies and I were reciting scriptures before the Buddha. Seeing the stranger, everyone was terrified. Her Highness immediately called the guards to restrain the person, and then invited the imperial physician. When the person broke in, he was almost exhausted. The imperial physician revived him. He only whispered a few sentences before fainting again. It was then that I learned the famine in Huangzhou had reached the point where people were exchanging children to eat. Yet, the emperor had opened the granaries 3 times and distributed enough relief money. That night, the room in the northwest corner where the refugee stayed suddenly caught fire. The flames spread to the row of rooms behind us. Ruby woke up and directly dragged me, wrapped in a blanket, out of the room. When I fully woke up, the only option was to wrap her in the same blanket with me. The two of us sat in the courtyard all night. Fortunately, the room that burned was an empty one nearby, so my luggage and rubies were still intact. Arson at Xiling Temple was a serious matter. Her Highness had to return to the palace immediately. Before leaving, Her Highness called me to her side, gently stroking my hair like a mother, and spoke softly. "Good child, you have worked hard these past days. I have remembered everything you did in my heart. Is there anything you wish to ask for? Please tell me." At that moment, my eyes became wet. Initially, I only intended to please Her Highness, but later, out of true admiration, I wanted to help her. Now that Her Highness said she had seen everything I did, it turned out that even without trying to show off or fight, efforts could still be seen. I held back my choking breath and knelt before Her Highness. "I beg Your Highness to grant a marriage for me and Victor." "I agree." Her Highness left that sentence behind and returned to the palace, taking the refugee with her. After Her Highness left, I still dared not be lazy. Every day, I diligently prayed to Buddha, hoping that Buddha would feel my sincerity and end the prolonged drought so that the suffering people would have a place to rely on. Lily wrote to me saying that Victor organized a charity donation in the capital, and led the Xiao family's merchant caravan personally to Hangzhou to provide relief. The young ladies also donated. Even Calvin donated half a year of his salary. Finally, he showed some responsibility. Victor witnessed many things in Hangzhou. On the way back, he met with an accident. Fortunately, he kept his life, but he was injured quite heavily. I feared he could not go out for the rest of the year. Later, Victor also wrote to me, saying that what Lily said was just a joke and I shouldn't take it seriously. I held the 2 letters tightly, looking at them over and over, my heart feeling a bit sour. Finally, I took out a box from my luggage and carefully stored them. From then on, Victor frequently wrote to me. With money, he could buy information that others did not know. Almost everything that happened in the capital was recounted to me in detail through his letters. Through him, I learned that the Liu family and the Su family had become in-laws. Howard became sworn brothers with Chancellor Su's nephew. Finally, father was involved with the Su family. This was inevitable, since he was reprimanded by the emperor but still wanted to send me to the chancellor's manor. I understood he had deep interests with the Su family. For a time, the Liu family became the most respected family in the capital. Bella and Leo also re-engaged. Everyone was jealous of the Grand Preceptor's manor, which had both the emperor's favor and Chancellor Su's protection. Calvin chose to leave the manor. One night, he packed his bags and quietly left through the side door. He left a farewell letter for Mother. In the letter, he said he would go to the border to join the army. He admitted that in the first half of his life, he had done enough bad things and was a coward, not even comparable to a sister like me. He called himself useless. Now, he wanted to leave the path father had arranged and find his own life goal. Mother held the letter and cried for a long time. Day and night, she worried about Calvin, fearing he would meet with mishaps at the border. Because of this, she aged a lot. Howard was smug, working beside Chancellor Sue, flattered by those around him to the point of not knowing the height of the sky or the depth of the earth. Compared to him, Quentin was completely forgotten. Victor's people noticed he was close to Father's political rivals. He must have wanted to use this method to attract Father's attention. By autumn, the climate finally cooled down. The capital received heavy rain after days of drought. The emperor returned to the palace after his inspection in Huangzhou, bringing anger and punishing a series of officials. But those people were just small figures, not the real masterminds. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but be curious and wrote to ask Victor how he knew those people were not the real masterminds. Victor's reply this time was short and heavy. He said, "Because I was there." Victor was a merchant who understood the times and knew how to avoid danger. Since returning to the capital, he had remained silent. Thanks to that, he kept his life and was not affected much. I was worried about him and did not want to continue this topic. I heard that the old madam of the Xiao family was annoyed by me and Bella, so she always urged Bella to get married quickly. But with the eldest sister unmarried, how could Bella get married to Leo? Perhaps because of Her Highness's promise, Victor became much bolder in his letters. This was the first time he directly confessed his feelings to me. "Dare I ask the eldest Miss Liu, when can you step into the Xiao family's door?" Before I could reply, Ruby snatched the brush and annoyedly wrote a few lines. "Wet until the chickens finish pecking a mountain of rice, the dogs finish licking a mountain of flour, and the lamp oil runs dry and burns through the chain." Victor replied very quickly. He knew my handwriting. This time, the letter was written directly to Ruby. "The Xiao family raises 300 dogs and 50,000 chickens. As for the iron smelting furnace, I don't know how many. As long as eldest Miss Liu agrees, 10 mountains of flour are nothing." This made Ruby so angry her face turned green. She wrapped herself around my arm, annoyed. "So what if he has money? He can't hug you like I can." Her mischievous tricks made me laugh and cry at the same time. When winter came, the temple became cold. Charcoal from the capital had not yet been sent. Although everyone wore warm clothes, we still felt uncomfortable. At this moment, we suddenly heard the sound of someone selling charcoal outside the temple. We ran out to look. From a distance, we saw the symbol of the Xiao family's merchant caravan. The servant said that gold charcoal imported from the western regions had just arrived. Receiving instructions from the family head, they made a large detour past Xiling to stop here. "No, we understand. The master wants us to bring charcoal to the future mistress. How dare we accept money?" Baskets of precious gold charcoal were unloaded one by one at Xiling Temple. Victor could be considered showing off his wealth in front of Ruby. Using someone else's things, she couldn't badmouth them. Ruby could only mutter, "Fine, I accept that he is worthy of you." From then on, every time the Xiao family's merchant team set off from the capital, they would detour past Xiling, bringing the best items and leaving a portion at Xiling Temple. Thanks to this, in the temple, I could also eat fresh seasonal fruits and use the best inkstones. As for expensive clothes and jewelry, I still refused, not forgetting Her Highness's teaching that a gray robe was enough for praying in the temple. When the term expired, on the way back, Ruby and I shared a carriage again. She sat opposite me, tears in her eyes. "Jade, later when you get married, you must send an invitation to me. I want to personally go to the house to see how luxurious the Xiao family really is. If you have no one to play with, you can continue to bully Bella," I sincerely suggested. She punched me lightly on the arm. Before parting, I was a little worried about her future. I asked her if she still had feelings for Calvin. Unexpectedly, this time Ruby held her head high when she heard Calvin's name. She only gave a contemptuous smile. "A person who bullied my sister and expects me to notice him. He is truly dreaming." I understood her character well. This time, I was truly relieved. Victor led people to pick me up. Behind him, June, Lily, Sue, and the other maids stood in a neat row. As soon as I took a step, I was surrounded by them. June had already married. Victor arranged a generous dowry for her, but he didn't hand it over all at once. Instead, he let her come to the Xiao family's treasury every 2 months to exchange a portion. 3 years later, if her husband's family was truly good and treated her sincerely, he would give the rest. The maids and I chatted for a while, then prepared to enter the palace to meet Her Highness. Upon arriving outside the palace, I coincidentally met Bella and Leo. Leo avoided me, only bowing from a distance. As for Bella, for some reason, she spoke sorely to me. The wind and frost at Xiling Temple are truly harsh. My sister looks much older. Indeed, praying, chanting scriptures, and ascetic cultivation require a sincere heart. Otherwise, it is difficult to move heaven and earth. I calmly replied. My words made the eyes of others looking at me filled with respect. Bella's face darkened. Before she could say anything, Ruby's voice rang out. These words are correct. I have never heard of anyone going to pray to Buddha at Xiling and returning fat and plump. Sister Lu has a special talent. If it weren't for suddenly falling ill and being unable to enter the palace the night before the festival, you could have tried it. Wonderful. I couldn't help but praise Ruby in my heart. Now Leo was also somewhat cold toward Bella. It was said that he was caught between Bella and the old madam of the Xiao family for 2 years. His feelings for Bella were no longer the same. If it were before, he would have definitely rushed out to protect his beloved sister. But now, he was silent for a while before saying, the 2 young ladies dedicated themselves to the country, which is truly respectable. Bella is young and doesn't know etiquette. I hope the 2 young ladies will overlook it. I did not reply. Ruby didn't even look at him. She stepped forward, linked her arm with mine, and sneered. Young, don't waste words with this fool. After saying that, she pulled me into the palace. Walking along the path, her back was still straight as before, like a proud peacock. Not seeing her for 2 years, Her Highness was still gentle and warm, standing beside the Emperor like a pure bodhisattva. Ruby and I, along with other noble ladies, completed our orders and were kept by Her Highness to talk before everyone returned home. Because of Her Highness's decree of marriage, I still married from the Lu house. Although my father was unwilling 1,000 times, he still had to prepare a generous dowry for me. Victor asked someone to choose the nearest auspicious day, unable to wait to take me home. Bella was equally anxious, hating that she couldn't make me leave immediately. It was just that on that day, seeing Arthur wearing brocade robes riding a tall horse, accompanying Victor to welcome the bride, her eyes suddenly turned red. The scene of the Grand Preceptor's manor welcoming the groom was grand. Victor brought even heavier betrothal gifts. The line of people carrying gifts was so long that it passed through several streets without ending. Behind him, he also had carriages full of gifts following. Victor, usually stingy, was showing off extravagantly today, giving the people of the capital a new perception of the Xiao family's wealth. Father also rarely had a smile on his face. Perhaps he felt he had finally regained some face. It was just that when Victor and I prepared to bow to heaven and earth, a young servant came to report. He said that all the betrothal gifts had been delivered to the 3 houses Victor bought for me outside the capital. Not a single item entered the Lu house. I couldn't help but laugh out loud under the red veil. Buddha forgives me. As for my father, he furiously walked away on the spot. That was even better. I didn't want to bow to him anyway. After father left, Victor carried me on his back through the door into the main hall. Victor and I bowed to heaven and earth, and bowed to his parents. When we bowed to each other, I saw his hands shaking under his sleeves from nervousness. I couldn't help but gently place my hand on the back of his hand. Victor held my hand tightly through the dark red cloth. We smiled together. After that, I was taken to the bridal chamber, sitting quietly with the red veil. I thought I had to wait for a while, but the door suddenly opened. Next was the voice of a young servant outside calling. The eldest master is distributing money. Everyone, come out to the front hall to receive it. The people teasing in the bridal chamber immediately dispersed. Victor walked straight to me. When the veil was lifted, I raised my head. The candlelight reflected in my eyes and his. We looked at each other and smiled. Victor's handsome face flushed red. Perhaps, even though he distributed money, he was still forced to drink quite a bit of wine. Hungry. I nodded. So he sat down next to me, reached into his sleeve, fumbled for a while, and took out a paper bag of beef jerky, offering it to me. On our wedding night, the 2 of us ate beef jerky together under the dragon and phoenix candles. While eating, Victor remembered that no one had guided us to drink the nuptial wine because he had chased the matchmaker away. Victor hurriedly called someone in. The matchmaker entered with an awkward face, forced a smile, and poured wine for us. When our arms intertwined to drink, Victor whispered in my ear, "Wife, I will treat you well for the rest of my life." Half a year after Victor and I married, the Chancellor's manor collapsed. The embezzlement of relief money in Huangzhou was always a pain in the emperor's heart, especially when he saw with his own eyes the people starving to the point of digging up earth to eat and dying on the road from consuming mud to fill their empty stomachs. After returning, the emperor lost sleep all night, his hair turning much grayer. Now, the direction of the relief money was finally clear. The money meant for the people had turned into gold threads on the clothes of the chancellor and his descendants, fine wine in their cups, and the tears of the singers in the manor. The emperor was furious. The chancellor's property was confiscated, and he was beheaded at the East Market. The Grand Preceptor's Manor, having a close relationship with the chancellor's manor, was also implicated. Father was dismissed from his post and exiled. Coincidentally, the place of exile was his original hometown, Qingzhou. That year, he triumphantly got on the carriage to go to the capital. Now he has returned to his old hometown with a broken body. More than 10 years of spring and autumn were just an illusory dream. What made him even more heartbroken was that the indictment recording his crimes was submitted by his own biological son, Quentin. Quentin traded his father for merit to stay in the capital. Unfortunately, he had great ambition and did not hesitate to betray his father to gain the favor of his superiors. But after the Liu family lost power, he could not achieve anything for the rest of his life. Bella did not want to follow father to suffer. Before the manor collapsed, she packed her bags and ran to the Xiao family manor to become a concubine. Bella went from being pampered by everyone to becoming a nameless concubine in the Xiao manor. This time, Leo did not argue with the old madam anymore and agreed for her sake. It was said that Bella was unwilling. After no longer being favored by Leo, she planned to use the opportunity of offering incense to seduce Arthur. Unfortunately, the plan for a chance encounter had not yet been implemented when she was caught by the older female servants of the Xiao manor. Rumor has it she was severely beaten and never heard from again. Calvin still hadn't returned. Since joining army, he had cut off contact with the family. Howard, whom father poured all his heart into, could not accept that his brilliant career shattered into smoke in one night. He kept getting angry and smashing things in the house, then suffered a mental breakdown. From beginning to end, only mother seemed satisfied with returning to Qingzhou. When I came to see her off, I quietly stuffed a bank note of 100 taels into her hand, wanting her to keep it carefully and learn to manage things herself. When father arrived in Qingzhou, he encountered refugees from Hangzhou. They hated him to the bone, wishing they could drink his blood and eat his flesh. Father was beaten by a mob. In the critical moment, the son he was so proud of abandoned him and ran away alone. When he returned home, he was seriously ill. Even so, every day people came to curse him, rushing into the house to point at his face and scold him. Father kept his dignity all his life. He never thought his life would end like this. He passed away in less than half a year, perhaps until death. He still didn't know the reason the emperor investigated him was because he heard farmers whose land had been seized cursing Lu the pig and Su the dog. While patrolling outside the city, the parental officials directly appointed by the emperor were despised by the people as worse than pigs and dogs. The emperor became vigilant, then investigated the chancellor's manor and the grand preceptor's manor. Father once told me that reputation could cost one's life. But later, he said as long as power was strong enough, reputation was nothing. In the end, father forgot what he had said. The most ironic thing was that after he passed away, mother's life became better. In the house, there was only the useless Howard to take care of. There was no mother-in-law above cursing all day. When mother used most of the money to take care of herself, she realized that money was actually enough, and managing the house was not as difficult as she thought. 2 years later, Victor and I gave birth to a firstborn son named Xiao Sun. Knowing the news, mother sent some specialties from Qingzhou to congratulate us. Arthur, becoming an uncle for the first time, liked the child very much, searching everywhere for novel items to make toys for him. 5 years later, Victor sent our son to his mother and took me traveling everywhere. When passing through Qingzhou, mother came to look at me from afar. She saw me wearing colorful clothes, her hands squeezing the handkerchief at her waist, daring not to step forward. Victor wanted to give her money, but she refused. Only Howard stood beside her, staring, wishing he could rush up to rob us. Now he was still a useless person, just from a famous useless person, he suddenly became a destitute useless person. Howard seemed desperate, but seeing the 2 rows of carriages of courting Victor and me, in the end, he dared not do anything. When we returned to the capital, an old friend of Victor came to find him for a drink. At the banquet, that friend teased him, saying that being afraid of his wife like that was not according to the rules and insisted on gifting him 2 beautiful concubines. I glanced at him. Victor immediately stiffened. When I put the wine cup down on the table, he jumped up, shouting loudly to clarify. No, I don't have any. Even if I have 3 extra copper coins, I hand them all to my wife. Where would I have money to find beautiful concubines? His friend saw he was beyond saving, drank a few cups, and then fled in a hurry. That night, Victor was not allowed into my room. The next morning, I saw Ruby sitting by my bed. She leaned on my shoulder, hugged my arm, glanced triumphantly at Victor, and said, "Sister, follow us sisters. Let's dump him." Hearing this, Victor couldn't take it anymore. He hurriedly pushed Ruby aside, sat next to me himself, and leaned on my shoulder. "Wife, don't go. Wife, please stay. Your husband still wants to be good to you for a lifetime." I thought for a moment, smiled gently, looked at him, and said, "Then we have to see how my husband performs." Jade's story offers a profound lesson on the power of self-worth and the art of letting go. It teaches us that while we cannot choose our family, we have the absolute power to choose our destiny. Instead of consuming herself with resentment or begging for validation from those incapable of giving it, Jade quietly built her own independence and strength. The ultimate revenge is not retaliation, but thriving in your own happiness. By valuing substance over appearance and dignity over drama, she proved that when you bravely let go of what hurts you, you make room for the love and abundance you truly deserve. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe,